Everyone, we'll wait just a couple minutes. Looks like we have 6 TC members, so we have a quorum, which is good. Okay, one more minute till 5 o'clock. I'm wondering if some folks might be joining late. Aiden, did you hear from anybody other than Denise?
No, I hadn't.
Okay, so some folks might be having issues getting in. Okay, it's 5 o'clock. So we'll call the April 24th, 2024 meeting of the Transportation Commission to order. Ariana, if you'd read the instructions, please.
Welcome to our virtual meeting. We are going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ariana. Aiden, if you call a roll, please.
Sure thing. Juliana Bennett.
Here.
MGR Govindarajan.
Here.
Dina Nina Martinez Rutherford. I don't see her yet. Barbara Harrington McKinney.
Oh, I see. Alder Martinez Rutherford just joined, Aiden.
Okay.
I did. I'm so sorry.
That's
No.
okay. We saw you just pop on.
Ann Kovich.
Here.
Robbie Weber.
Here.
Denise Jess is excused. Pepe Barros.
Here.
Darren Wozniewski. Chris McCahill.
Here.
Nikki Vandermeulen. Bill Bremer.
Here.
And Harold Kleems.
Here.
So, Bill, you are able to vote since we've got a couple folks missing here. It looks like Nikki just popped on.
I did. I'm here.
Okay. People are coming in late here. Anybody else just joined? So it still looks like, so Nikki, you're able to vote, and with Darren and Alder Harrington McKinney and Denise not here at this point in time, Bill, you're able to vote as well. So, okay, thanks everybody. With regard to the minutes, I just want to point out that there's a typo on the agenda, and we're looking for approval of the March 27th, 2024 minutes. And the minutes have the date correct. It just got entered incorrectly on the agenda. So, did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes? Okay, do we have a motion? Alder Martinez Rutherford?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay. And Bill, is that a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no hands, the motion is carried. Aiden, do we have anybody registered to speak under item number 1? Items not on the agenda?
No, we do not.
Okay, and we'll move on to the consent agenda. Ariana mentioned that we might have some folks registered on items 2 and 3. Is that right, Aiden?
That is correct. Yeah.
Anyone registered to speak?
For item 3, somebody registered for item 2, but does not wish to speak.
Okay, but there is someone registered to speak on item 3?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have to take item 3 off the consent agenda. So the only remaining item on the consent agenda is item 2. Did anybody wish to have that one separated? Okay, seeing no hands, I would look for a motion to approve item number 2, Legistar 82920, issuing a specialized transportation services license to First Group. Harold?
So moved.
And Robbie, is that a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, so we'll go with item 3. Since we do have someone registered to speak, Mick, do you want to do just a very brief summary about item 3, and then we'll hear from the public and then have any comments or discussion?
Sure. Sorry, so that we have about 250 stops that we are going to have some sort of update or change to this year. It's a list. Basically, these are improvements due to the city's sidewalk replacement program, due to making the stops all accessible. Go ahead.
Excuse me a second, Mick. I forgot to ask if there are any disclosures or recusals. Not sure how I
Sure.
skipped over that. Are there any disclosures or recusals this evening? Oops. Okay, see, none. Go ahead, Mick. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. So, and then these bus stop improvements also come up due to construction projects that happen every year. So this is a kind of a routine thing we do every year. This isn't related to BRT. We're going to come back to the TC next month and talk about any stop changes due to the rollout of bus rapid transit. So this is just our routine stop list that we do every year. And the list that we put together, Jesse Stammer, who is with us, our marketing customer service manager, reviewed it all from a customer service perspective. We reviewed it with Tim, our capital projects coordinator, who put the list together, and we made some changes before we even brought it to you. So that is the list that we gave you is our proposal to the TC to take a look at, and we're here to answer any questions based on what the caller or the speaker has to say.
Okay, why don't we go to the registrant, and then we'll see if anybody on the commission has any comments or questions. Who do we have, Aiden?
So we have Andrea Masur of Williamson Street, Madison, Wisconsin, opposes and wishes to speak.
Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Chair, I don't see anyone in attendance by that name.
Andre, I see it. Andre, is that?
And it says Alexandre.
Oh, is that? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Andrea Masur. So yeah, I don't see anybody either. Andrea, are you there on a different name or something? If so, raise your hand. Sorry about that, Ariana. I glanced at it and it looked like it was Andrea. Okay, well, it looks like the registrant has not arrived. Okay, anybody have any comments or questions? For Mick Harrell, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Anne. Mick, just very briefly, what's the difference between a pad and an amenity pad?
I'm going to throw that over to Tim to answer that question.
So, hello, I'm Tim Sabota. I'm the capital projects staff person here at Metro Transit, work under Mick and Mike Czechvala. The intent of the language of pad versus amenity pad is to identify where the concrete proposed for installation would be of sufficient width to be able to, at a future point, potentially get in a bench or shelter amenity adjacent to the clear width of concrete that would be needed for wheelchair ramp deployment between the curb, bus door, and the sidewalk.
I figured it might be something like that.
Okay, anybody have any other comments or questions? Bill, go ahead.
Thanks. Mick, is there, I noticed in the list there's no shelters, either moving them or new ones. Will that happen or some more work go on by staff this year to identify potential shelter
Tim,
move?
you want to handle that one too, please?
Yes, that is a good follow-up question to the original question. It is Metro's intent to continue to allocate or reallocate amenities from the old route network into the new route network. And in part, a lot of the proposed concrete infrastructure that is being included is facilitating that process as far as kind of looking at where are there bus stop locations that have higher ridership, proximity to low-income minority neighborhoods, things like that, trying to get that concrete in large enough where conditions exist to be able to then come back with those specific amenity proposals.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody else have any comments or questions? I don't see Andrea in. I don't see her. I don't see Andrea in the attendees section. So looks like we don't have that person. Any further comments or questions? Okay, Aiden, maybe you could get the speaker's information to Mick or Jesse, and they can reach out and make sure that they hear what she wanted to say, even though she wasn't here and able to speak this evening. That's about all I can think to do at this point. If there's no further comments or questions, we need a motion to approve. Bill?
I'll make a motion of approval of the list of the changes that will be made for 2024.
Okay. And Alder Martinez Rutherford, is that a second? Did you wish to speak to the motion at all, Bill?
No, I think it was a very comprehensive list. So I went through a lot of those locations, and they certainly, without having to go into specific details, but I think they all seem, I didn't see any that did not make any sense to me. So
Okay.
I think they're good.
All right, sounds good. I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Okay, I'm seeing no hands, so the motion is carried. All right, and again, just
Thanks,
checking.
everyone.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so we will move on to item 4, responding to WSDOT's I-39-9094 project concurrence, point 2. Tom?
Yeah, so the Wisconsin Department of Transportation is studying the interstate from basically Madison up to the Wisconsin Dells. They're preparing an environmental impact statement, and part of the environmental impact statement is having participating agencies concur or not concur, with their preferred alternative. And so a couple months ago, we chose to be a participating agency. And so we have the opportunity to comment, right? Now, they don't necessarily have to agree with everything we say, but at least, we've given our comments. I will say, probably the objectives of WSDOT and their values is a little different than Madison's values. But I'll say that the current administration and the WSDOT infrastructure, staff infrastructure is more collaborative than they have been in the past. And so while we disagree on things, they are seeking to work with us on a lot of things. So here's I'm going to just go ahead and run this for the quarter study. They're preparing an environmental impact statement. It's supposed to be out in spring of 2024, and I think actually it'll be June. And I guess June is technically still spring, right? It's 67 miles of interstate, 9 miles in the city of Madison, 17 interchanges are being studied. 6 of them occur within the city of Madison. They had a desire to select a preferred alternative for fall of 2023. It's actually, I guess it's spring of 2024, but they've kind of announced what they think is their preferred alternative. This will go before the State Transportation Projects Commission in late 2024. This is not our last opportunity to comment. When they issue the environmental impact statement, we have an opportunity to provide comments and ask for specific commitments, and we will do that. But this is kind of an interim thing. These are of particular interest to us. Here's a discussion that we'll do. There's been a longstanding interest in adding an interchange at Hepker Road. In some ways, it's almost we would prefer it at Hanson Road because of all the development and services that occur in the American Center. I don't know if any of you have visited the UW hospital and clinics out there, but it's a small city. There's just a lot there. Right now, their main access is either through a pretty convoluted way through the American Center and or off of Highway 51. I think businesses in the American Center desire this, particularly UW Health. The DOT studied 2 different types of interchanges. One is a kind of a partial clover leaf on the right, and then one is a traditional diamond interchange on the left. They've recommended this. They've done a fair amount of traffic modeling. This is a tricky location because it's between 2 what they call system interchanges. System interchanges are interchanges with kind of free-flowing ramps. And so we have the interchange at, I think, 151. Is this at 151? And the interchange kind of at 51. And so this is between them. And so, they have to figure out what works. If this interchange were constructed, it would probably be on the closer end of their 20-year schedule. So they're looking at a 20-year schedule. This would probably be constructed in the 2030s or something like that. As far as the benefits, this improves interstate access to area employers and regional medical facilities. It serves the planned residential growth northeast of the interchange, potentially facilitates further development on sites within the American Center. The American Center was initially kind of developed as a suburban business office park, but recently many, if not most, of the property owners there have decided to densify it and make it a little bit more of a traditional employment area with more streets and taller buildings and less rolling grass, and this would help facilitate that. It does increase traffic on Hepker Road and may need improvements to accommodate increased traffic. They have done traffic modeling, and the traffic impacts to Portage Road are somewhat limited. West of the interstate, the development potential brought on from this interchange is somewhat limited due to airport height restrictions. Adopted city plans do not currently consider a Hepker interchange, but they could be revised. I just also want to provide a note that we have, I think Brian Grady is here too. And so Brian, maybe you could turn your camera on so that if there's questions, or if I don't fully explain the land use component to a good satisfaction, feel free to jump in. Okay. This is perhaps the Hepker interchange impact or benefit area. I think there is some desire that if this was installed and the American Center benefits, that perhaps the American Center could help participate in the local cost share that would be associated with it. These are the types of existing development that this interchange would serve. So it's a pretty dense. My wife was a patient at that hospital a couple of years ago, and I was kind of surprised at the size and the breadth of area that the hospital serves. These are the traffic changes that would shift. We could get down to the detail, but in reality, what's occurring is that roads that you see in blue basically are seeing a reduction in traffic, and roads that you see in red are receiving an increase in traffic. So 39, 90, 94, with this interchange, there'd be more traffic on that. But Highway 51, some of the local roads that you see in blue, there'd be a reduction in traffic. I think I'm going to just make a little note that this portion of Hepker Road, basically, this portion of Portage Road, I'm sorry, from Hepker Road down to Hanson Road would see an increase in traffic, yet there's almost no traffic change in Portage Road south of Hanson Road. These are assignments that we actually recently received from Wiscott Consultants. You can see that Hepker Road, west of I-3990, there's a reduction of about 2,000 cars. East, you can see there's an addition of about 8,000 or 9,000 cars. Okay. Portage Road north of Hepker interchange, 700. Portage Road south of Hepker interchange, 2,600. say that, you know, these are quite modest. You know, these are not significant traffic. And I also want to say that I'm using an old slide, and so this statement right down here, no longer, the preferred alternative is alternative 1, and it does include the Hepker interchange, so please ignore that statement below. I'll correct it in the slideshow. The other alternative is the Milwaukee Street interchange. This has been in our plans probably for almost about 2 decades. It's currently in the scheduling of WisDOT's project. This would probably occur later, you know, unless something changes, like 2040 or beyond. So it's a fair amount below. The bridges that are associated with this interchange are already in existence, and that if this interchange were not constructed, at some point, the city of Madison probably would be extending Milwaukee Street to County Highway T at any rate. This is a very complicated interchange because it's right next to the Badger interchange. So their traffic modeling is going to be what it is. They are recommending the partial cloverleaf rather than the traditional diamond. The reason for that is you can see on the westbound on-ramp, you know, the westbound on-ramp basically joins the main line here, which is farther, you know, from the system interchange than this right here. And so that's kind of why that's there. And I think staff feel like, you know, if they are able to make it work with a partial cloverleaf, that would be fine. Their standard policy is that you don't install a service interchange literally within about 2 miles of a system interchange, and they're willing to bend that policy for this, and so we're okay with that. I'm gonna if Brian, you're here, these are slides that I think you state with more passion than I do. So Brian, do you want to give these slides right now?
I'm not sure I see Brian. Is Brian on?
Okay. He's not on. So I think what I'll do is I will try and state these with the same passion that some of our planning staff would.
Tom, did you need Ariana to send him an invitation?
No, I've sent him an invitation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's fine. So the benefits, it provides interstate access for existing and future East Side residents and employers. It's included in the adopted City of Madison plans. The builds the planned Milwaukee Street crossing of I-94, which has been planned for so long that the bridges are already there. The Milwaukee Street and the Sprecher Road streets near the planned site are built to accommodate an interchange. The Madison Fire Department is interested in this interchange because it increases the first response coverage by Fire Station 13. And then the traffic volume increases are expected to be modest. The Milwaukee Street connection to County T north of I-94 may require extensive grading. In some ways, you know, that's because this is Wisconsin DOT's project, it's more their problem than ours. Would be located relatively close to the I-94 and Highway 30 system interchange. Again, they are willing to, WisDOT's willing to allow that to occur. This is the planned probably benefit or impact area of the interchange, and these are the planned land uses adjacent to it. if you note that, you know, all of this area right here is planned as employment in our land use plans. And I think it's, and it's been planned as employment for many years, probably more than a decade. I think it's kind of the opinion of our planning staff that the only way that that employment would actually occur would be if that interchange were to be installed. If it were not installed, then the plan should probably just be revised, and residential would be the other thing that it could be. If we go on, let me just see. Let me, I have to. Yeah, there we go. You know, the interchange is shown in the neighborhood development plan, 1998, last amended in 2012. So actually it's been in our plan, I guess, for 25 years now, right? It's in our comp plan. The interchange study recommended by Common Council in 2017 said that the city supports the concept of an interchange at I-94, subject to additional study to determine the impacts of the project on the city and the environment and the planned city growth areas. An interchange would help implement land use and transportation recommendations in the Northeast Neighborhoods Development Plan and the Sprecher Neighborhood Development Plan. This is the vision that was shown, I think the Sprecher plan. I think city planning says that basically this area could support density that's shown in the pictures to the right. One is over by Arbor Gate, one is by City Center West. One might also look at the, if you go to Cottage Grove Road, not Cottage Grove Road, but if you go to Cottage Grove at the highway and interchange, you notice that there's a fair amount of employment density that is developing there. And Madison can't really compete with that. And I think there's a feeling that, well, we would be as attractive for employers if we had it interstate access like Highway N does. Yeah, so the traffic of effects of the interchange are somewhat modest. First, I want to address the extension of Milwaukee Street to County T without an interchange. So if we look at the bottom of this right here, basically in the traffic model, extending Milwaukee Street to County T would shift about 4,000 cars of traffic, vehicles per day of traffic that currently uses Sprecher and County T, and would put that on Milwaukee Street. Okay, so it's it would shift traffic, but it does not really affect Milwaukee Street west of Sprecher, and it does not really affect Sprecher south of Milwaukee Street. Okay. Right now we have the housing development. I think it's the Meadowlands, the Meadows, right here, and you know that area. It would be fine. It might be advantageous to introduce a little bit more traffic in that area. Here is the differences in the traffic that would occur if an interchange were placed there. This assumes that the extension to Milwaukee Street already occurs. And you can see all of these traffic volumes, Milwaukee Street, the differences in traffic volumes, 200 cars a day, 800 cars a day, 100 cars a day. These are 2050 volumes, 1,100 cars a day. all of these volumes right here are relatively modest. They're almost inconsequential. However, this does assume that the Milwaukee Street is extended onto County T. And so that's the change that the interchange would affect. We look at the Highway 151 interchange. This is the current interchange. This is a system interchange. In its day, this was the height of modernity, right? Clover leaves are less desirable now because of some of the weaving movements that occur between the on-ramp and the off-ramp. For this, some of the city's key objectives would be to slow speeds on East Washington, provide an urban connection to the American Center, reduce noise impacts, enhance development opportunities, and complement BRT. And then perhaps change yet the entrance to the American Center to be more like what's in the Ratman neighborhood development plan. This is I think this is just helps provide a little bit of context of what's there. You can see that this is East Town, right? This is Home Depot. Okay. And then to our upper left, there's a lot of jobs, right? And it's very difficult to get to those jobs via a bicycle. And it's very difficult to get those jobs if you are a driver that doesn't like to use highways, right? So if we could address some of those deficiencies with this project, we would be for that. We also would like to slow speeds on East Washington Avenue. In 2021, we had 5 pedestrian and bike deaths on East Washington, which is just amazing, right? It's unacceptable. If you look, this is a picture right from Street View, and you can see East Washington in this area has a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, and that's, if you are a pedestrian and you get hit by a car traveling 55 miles an hour, you will die, right? So we would rather see an interchange that supports a lower speed East Washington Avenue. And then this is the high crossing. These are the 2 interchange alternatives that kind of made it to the front, right? Alternative 1C and then alternative 5A or 6. Alternative 5A or 6 basically was kind of an analysis done at the request of the city of Madison. We had hoped that perhaps we could route East Washington onto High Crossing, right? And then all of a sudden we have an urban entrance into our city, right? That doesn't go through this. That experienced some problems. City of Sun Prairie wasn't necessarily in favor of that. And it diverted quite a bit of traffic to Highway 30 and created problems. It was kind of like a whack-a-mole problem. About 30% of the traffic that was going to be on East Washington went to Highway 30, and then they felt like they had to, do improvements to Highway 30. They kind of modified alternative 5A and 6 to the point where we feel like it's not the best alternative anymore. There's too many free-flowing ramps, and it doesn't really slow speeds. So we now, city staff now support alternative 1C. I think I have a slide where I'll go through the components of 1C a little bit better. Let me go down. yeah, this is it. We no longer support this. You can see it has, there's no signals to slow traffic. The free flow ramps have no logical bike connections. For instance, if you know, just these types of situations are poor. So with that being said, they have recommended this. We prefer this to anything they've done. While it is a directional interchange, there are some good things that we like about it. Notice that traffic that comes in from Sun Prairie and or gets off the interstate to come into Madison has to go through 2 signal controlled intersections. So instead of having free flowing ramps at this that promote speeds of 40 miles an hour or higher, cars will have to go through signals, which will, logically make them travel at a slower pace. As far as bike accommodations, we would like a better connection for bikes to not only the American Center, but also to that path that is on the southeast side of Highway 151 between Madison and Sun Prairie. And so what they've done is they've created an off-street bike and pedestrian path that's shown in blue. So you can see that, whereas now there's no way, if you're at, let's say, Easttown Mall, there's no way you can take a bike and really get to the American Center, unless I guess High Crossing might be something, but here there will actually be a path that goes through the interchange and takes you right to the American Center. And then if you go through this interchange right here, it'll connect with the existing path that goes to Sun Prairie. As far as the Highway 30 interchange, they I think they want to reconfigure it so that there are fewer left exits. And if the things that you see that are hatched, gray and hatched, that's the existing interchange, and what you see in blue is the new interchange. The new interchange meets their standards, and it essentially fits inside of the footprint that they have now. So I guess we don't have strong opinions regarding this. This is and it's an expensive interchange, but this is their budget, not so much our budget, right? Things that we have made an opinion. Again, this is their project, but you can see the modernization of the existing travel lanes, and this is a little bit of a misnomer in that in the section of I-94 between the Badger interchange and 151, there's actually another lane right here. So basically the existing situation is an 8-lane freeway. We knew that they would want to expand it, and so we were advocating for a managed lane that could be treated like the Beltline flex lane. Okay, so if we did that, that would be a capacity expansion when they needed it. They have said that they need CD roads, collector distributor roads. So basically what that would do is that would expand it from 10 lanes to 2 managed lanes. And then their actually full-on recommendation is they'd like to expand it and put the CD roads, 12 lanes. Okay. So we've in the resolution, we've said that we don't concur with the capacity expansion and that we discourage the use of CD roads. So I guess we have to kind of recognize that this is not our road, but this part of the preferred alternative, we're saying that, you know, we're not on board with. This is an example of where the collector distributor roads would be. In the northbound section, you can see how they have a CD road here. You know, what's in purple would go to would be a CD road that goes to Sun Prairie. What's in pink would be a CD road that goes to the American Center. It peels off the main line here in the red. If we look to the right at the Badger interchange, you know, the entrance from Highway 30, you know, goes to a CD road that's in blue. And then if you want to go on I-94 to the north, you take the blue. But if you want to go to Sun Prairie to the east, you take the red. You know, Wisconsin DOT and their traffic modeling will say that these are necessary. And I'm just going to acknowledge that if you drive this, there are you know, backups. The Highway 30 to 151 connection. If you go in the morning, there are backups and traffic is going quite slowly. But it does add pavement capacity. This is an example of some of what the CD roads have. Again, the resolution says that we discourage this, but you know, this is right between the Badger interchange and 151. And here you can see this is a basket weave right on the east side, and then on the west side there's just a traditional CD road. So this is what we have here in blue is what the resolution says that we prefer. In the resolution, we also state that we, you know, acknowledge all of these bike connections that we asked for in a previous resolution. That was about 2 months ago. And then I think we emphasized Milwaukee Street. You know, Milwaukee Street continues to be a challenge, right? It's a little scary to think that they may not get to this area until 2040, right? Because, you know, this is not a great solution for 15 years, right? They have done, so as I mentioned, you know, we don't agree with Wisconsin DOT on everything, and our values are different. But I'm just gonna compliment them on the noise modeling that they did. I used to do this in my previous job, and they did a very extensive job. They shared with us last week the preliminary analysis and what they felt like where noise walls were reasonable and feasible. I've shared this with some of the alders that are directly affected. And so I think WisDOT is willing to build many noise walls. Traditionally, this has been a difficult thing to get WisDOT to do due to their criteria, but due to maybe some of their innovative modeling, a new modeling program, some changes in policy. I'm going to say the noise component of this project has, they've addressed it. They've done a good job addressing that. Right now, the results are preliminary, so I don't think I can post them, but I have briefed alders who are affected, and if you would like a briefing, I can do that. The cost share policy, we've put this in as a a thing in the resolution. It's one of the very last therefores. First, I want to clarify that this is a capital cost. This is not an operating cost. I think some people are saying, well, if we have a budget, deficit, why are we talking about this, right? And this is a capital cost. This is a capital cost, much like University Avenue or Atwood Avenue. Okay, so it doesn't affect our operating budget. They only redo the freeway once every 60 years. So if we want an interchange or a crossing, now is the time to do it. If we don't do it now, then we'll wait 60 years, right? And so which might be fine. But I'm just going to say that if we want, like if our land use plan says Milwaukee Street interchange is needed for the uses we're trying to encourage, then we have to participate in that, or our opportunities for the future, won't be there. Right now, the WSDOT cost share policy is 50% for new interchanges and crossings. And so that includes some of the Pike Ped crossings. What we would like is to pay 50% minus federal participation. The way that would affect our cost share is that, using the current Wisconsin DOT cost share policy, a $20 million interchange, right, times 50% would mean that we would have a $10 million local cost. Okay. So to put that in perspective, University Avenue, that's about a $35 million project. So that kind of helps you understand what that might be, right? Now, our requested treatment saying, well, if you're going to use federal monies on your portion of the project, we'd like you to use federal monies on our portion of the project as well. So let's say if 70% of the cost of the improvement is paid for by the federal government, right? Then if you subtract out the federal contribution, right, and then we pay half of that, well, then all of a sudden we would have a $3 million local cost rather than a $10 million local cost. And we feel like that's fair. If you're going to use federal money for your portion of the project, we'd like you to use federal money for our portion of the project as well. That's likely to be a negotiation that occurs, in the coming years, probably closer to when these things are actually built. I think there's Alderfield has mentioned there's some concern about how are these things going to be paid. This was pretty far in the future, but the interchanges could be paid by a variety of methods, including TIF or assessments. Okay. For example, the Milwaukee Street interchange includes a fair amount of employment, right? And so, a TIF that capture that employment could easily pay for the cost share. For instance, we're using TIFs to pay for the local cost share of our bus rapid transit. So it's something. It could also be paid for through assessments. If assessments were used, the majority of the single family residences would be exempt under our current assessment policy. So most of the housing that you see out there probably would not have to pay any assessment for Milwaukee Street interchange. And we have Chris, I think Petakowski is on board to help with that as well. This was a Wisconsin milestone that they kind of shared last year. You can see they're a little bit behind schedule in that, the recommended preferred alternative is actually occurring kind of in 2024. But I think they will be on schedule with the release of the draft environmental impact statement. The city will be submitting comments for that. This is not our last time to comment, but this resolution does provide our position on the existing. And so that was a little bit long-winded, but it's a pretty big project and thought it was worth providing the background.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Before we go to comments or questions, I believe we have at least one registrant. Is that right, Aiden?
We do, but I don't believe they're wishing to speak. Let me.
Oh, okay. Do you want to read it off then?
Sure. So we have two. It's Mike Panton of South Sprecher Road opposes, does not wish to speak, and Nicholas Davies of Richard Street supports and does not wish to speak.
Okay. Right. Thanks. So comments or questions for Tom? Bill, go ahead.
You're muted.
You're muted, Bill.
Thank you. There was the person who was opposed, he sent a letter.
Mhm.
So it is available.
He sent a letter, and some of what he was concerned about wasn't quite correct, and so I tried to answer some of those questions in the
Yeah,
presentation.
that's what I kind of thought. So, okay, thanks. Tom, I guess on the funding, the new interchange at Milwaukee Street, that would require a local cost share. Is that correct? That's what you were referring to. But the replacement of the overpass of Milwaukee Street, that would not require cost share?
You mean the Milwaukee Street
Yes.
overpass? Yeah, that would not.
Okay. All right. Good. But and your thought is that in talking with them that the Milwaukee Street overpass would be further out in the
I think
right.
I think they have long sections of the interstate that are very straightforward and freeway like, right? It's easy to, and then they have very complicated portions that
are going to require a lot of design and planning.
Yeah, $1 billion interchange.
Yeah. You just don't drop one of those down.
Yeah, and think about the traffic control, and so it was my impression that the complicated sections would come a little bit later.
And that's why the Milwaukee Street would be later.
They haven't said that directly.
Okay.
But the Milwaukee Street overpass is associated with the Badger System interchange.
Yeah, I was hoping that they could pull that out away from the Badger.
Well, they might be able to, and we could ask that, and we could put that in our comments on the EIS. And similarly, if we want, there may be, I don't know, there might be benefits to having a Milwaukee Street interchange prior to all this stuff happening on the Badger. Maybe we don't even want to be driving on the Badger for the 4 years it's being reconstructed, and so maybe there's value in a Milwaukee Street.
Sure, they have that
sooner. I don't know what Madison's position is on that. I'm just right now where we're at. This is kind of what we're putting forward.
Yeah. And I, you and I have spoken in the past about my concerns about the Milwaukee Street interchange, about the proximity to the Badger interchange. And I haven't been closely affiliated with it for more than 10 years now, but I think interstate justification reports are required, right? And this, because of the proximity to a system interchange, it's a higher level of interstate justification that may even have to go to Washington.
Yeah, they would prepare the IJRs, their traffic modeling. I guess their traffic modeling indicates that it does not create as much of a
the weave problem. That's where I perceive it as the weaving issue.
Yeah.
And I know that building the partial cloverleaf as the recommended interchange it helps a little. It helps. I shouldn't say a little. It does help. But my only concern is I'm not an advocate for partial cloverleafs, and as we saw in the newspaper the past week, partial cloverleaf interchanges are susceptible to wrong way movements, and that's obviously something that you try to avoid. So,
but we could put signs up, right?
Yeah, well, we do that, but we need to do more than that. But anyway, so that's they in discussions with them, so they were willing to have a partial cloverleaf as their preferred alternative.
Yeah, they I think the traffic modeling surprised them.
Okay. Oh,
And so it just wasn't as big an impact as they thought it would be.
okay. Um, eh, Earlier, now, different subject now. When we got the agenda for tonight's meeting, I thought that you had included a copy of the resolution. But
It's in
but it's not
it's in-
there anymore.
Well, it should be in Legistar.
I couldn't find it this afternoon.
Well, Aiden, maybe you can look off online for it, but last I checked, it was there.
I saw it earlier last week, you know, when the agenda first came out, but it was not there this afternoon when I went to
Yeah,
look at it.
I was looking at it last night and I found it in Legistar.
Oh, did you, Tom, have you changed the resolution?
No, I haven't. I changed the presentation a little bit from what I posted over the weekend.
I saw that, yeah.
Just to help answer some of the questions that have come up since then.
Well, I didn't see the resolution. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I could show it. Would it help?
I don't know. Is that what we're?
Yes,
going to be
that's
looking
what
at
we're asked to approve. Yeah.
approve tonight? Okay.
Can you call it up, Tom?
Yeah. So here's I'll share it right here. So I'm gonna just skip.
Oh, okay. I see. It's actually in part below. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm corrected. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I was
Yeah, it's
looking
not
for it
a,
as
it's not a separate
legisla-
document.
It's
No,
not
it's
a
not a
separate
separate.
document. Got
Nope.
it. Okay. All right.
so basically,
If that hasn't changed, then I don't have any issues. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So basically, you can see we concur with the interchange of full modernization, concur with the recommendation, Milwaukee Street. We concur with the directional alternative because it's better than, we concur with the recommendation of at Hepker Road with the shifted diamond.
Yep.
51, the partial clover relief. Basically at 51 Stone Road, they're just kind of doing the same thing.
Yep.
We do not concur with the recommendation of the modernization plus the general purpose added lane. The city continues to have concerns regarding induced travel demand brought on by capacity expansion and believes the modernization hybrid managed lane alternative would have less overall travel demand impact. And then we discourage the adding of collector distributor roads along the main line. The addition of these roads effectively takes a 6 to 8 lane section of freeway and converts it to a 12 lane section of freeway. We continue to support the pedestrian bicycle crossings and improvements. And we continue to have concerns regarding noise impacts of the existing recommended freeway facilities. Now note that since this resolution was drafted and entered, WSDOT has met with us, and I think that therefore be it resolved is of less concern than it was just 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And then be it finally resolved, the city requests that in addition to motor vehicle improvements, that federal funding participate in interchange and bicycle pedestrian improvements subject to WSDOT's cost share policy, reducing cost to both WSDOT and the city of Madison.
So that final resolution be resolved, then helps as far as your recommendation to them regarding cost share for Milwaukee Street interchange.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't say that, but
we're laying out our negotiating position.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Tom, for the presentation. I mean, I have grave concerns with this whole, what is basically going to be a big highway expansion. Let me ask some questions, though. You talked about the compatibility of the plans with the adopted neighborhood plans. Can you say a little bit more also about how it is compatible with other commitments that the city has? Like, for example, Dane County has a goal to reduce vehicle miles traveled by 15% by 2050. So that's a county goal, but in the Vision Zero action plan, we have basically committed to subscribing to that goal. So can you say a little bit about what the modeled BMT impact of this whole expansion is going to be?
You know, I can't. I have said, you know, I'm going to just get Brian Grady on you coming. So just in case. So I have sent other letters on behalf of the Transportation Department, not the City of Madison, that have expressed those concerns. So we've been quite direct, saying that our values, we have different values. As far as the comp plan, the VMT, we don't support the capacity expansion. We do, our planning department does feel like an interchange at Milwaukee Street provides an opportunity to provide employment density that would not occur otherwise. They might say, well, that employment will go to Cottage Grove, or it'll go somewhere else that will also be inducing traffic. So I understand the logic of that. As far as the Hepker Road, the discussion of the interchange at Hepker Road has been around for a while. It isn't in a current plan, but it's been strongly advocated by UW Health as well as some of our corporate partners. And so there's, I have my own feelings regarding the regional nature of that medical center, but I guess that's my feelings, not the city's feelings.
Okay. And then the other question is from a Vision Zero perspective. Do you have a sense of like how many additional deaths and serious injuries this project is going to bring based on increase in VMT, based on the fact that our experience, whenever you are near a Wistat highway as somebody walking or biking or even driving, it is usually a pretty hostile environment, and I don't see that changing in these plans.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I'm going to break that into maybe 3 components. Okay. So they have a pretty sophisticated safety model that I think is rather poor for city streets, but I think it's rather well calibrated for freeways. It's the IHSTM model. And that model will show that this improvement reduces deaths, okay, and injuries. So that model will say that. That model will not necessarily account for induced demand, right? So let's say if we have 20% more traffic, well, we have 20% more exposure, maybe to a lower crash rate. So it's, and it's, I think it ends up becoming more of a philosophy discussion, right? I do believe that probably the freeway will be safer, but the freeway will be able to accommodate more traffic, and by being able to accommodate more traffic, it will help create more traffic. For East Washington, I do think it will slow speeds. I think our speeds will be slower on East Washington, and that's a key concern of ours.
Yeah, so I think what I hear you saying, and please correct me if I got that wrong, you're saying the fatality rate per vehicle miles traveled, like per million miles traveled, is going to go down, but since the VMT is going to go up, it's quite possible that more people are going to be killed or injured.
It could be. I should almost let Chris McCahill, he could answer some of this. So induced travel demand is not really modeled in our 3 traditional travel demand models, right? And so they have one traffic forecast. They have a build traffic forecast and a no build traffic forecast. They're generally within 10% of each other. Okay, they don't have a travel demand forecast for, well, if it only takes me 20 minutes to get to work instead of 35 minutes to get to work, I'm going to choose to live in Cottage Grove instead of on the near side of Madison. And that is not reflected in travel demand models, locational choices, and it's very difficult to quantify.
Thank you. And have they done these models already? Like, is that data already available?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you want build
Okay.
and no build projections. But I think what's going to happen is that I suspect if you were to do the calculations of the predicted crash rate under their improvements, even with induced or increased traffic, the overall crashes would be lower. However, philosophically, right, it does mean that we're leaning into the auto more, right? And so there's all sorts of policy discussions saying, you know, should America as a country be investing this much in motor vehicle infrastructure and almost divesting from passenger rail and transit, right? So that's a whole nother policy discussion, but that's not part of this resolution, really. It's kind of, this resolution is site specific on this project.
Fair enough. However, you know, when we, for example, look at the impact of the Milwaukee Street interchange, I mean, you show the projections of traffic not actually increasing all that much, but then we also talk about how it's going to enable development in an area that hasn't been served by buses at all, is probably not going to be served by transit in the future all that much. And so all that additional travel demand generated through these developments, I mean, the renderings show big parking lots, which I think is realistic for that kind of development pattern. So I think that's another thing that we need to keep in mind when making these site-specific recommendations.
Yeah, actually, though, can I say that it hasn't been served by transit, but with the network redesign, it's served very well. You have the C out there every 30 minutes and the D out there every 30 minutes. And so that was, I actually feel a small source of pride saying that these were areas of the city that were not served prior to the transit network redesign and now are. So.
Yes, I was also thinking about north of the interstate where you showed all that new commercial development.
Oh,
anyway. When I looked at Wistat materials, this was a while ago when they maybe had their last public meetings, they were very cautious when talking about the intersection with East Wash and the bike enhancements. There was a lot of like, well, if we can acquire the right of way, if we can get the easements, to me it sounded like, well, and this might be because they can't use eminent domain for it, and they are not willing to use the already very wide footprint that they have to build this bike facility. So I just want to get a sense from you. I mean, this sounds good in theory, but is it actually going to happen?
I think it could. I think what happens though is that like one of our bike ped requests was kind of that railroad south of Easttown, right? Could they put a crossing in that railroad south of Easttown, right? And I think they are willing to put that in, but that crossing has to connect with something, right? And so, and they don't necessarily, the way the current eminent domain law reads is that they can't use eminent domain to establish a new pedestrian or bicycle crossing. Now, we're of the opinion, and I believe they are of the opinion, that if one exists, you know, you can use eminent domain. So we'd have to partner with them on that. Some of the crossings that we have asked for, we have been working and have reserved some right of way through development, so that we do have connections. You know, examples are kind of the glacial drumlin. Is Chris Pedakowski here?
He is.
You want to add anything to that, Chris?
Yeah. So, excuse me. Kind of in the American Parkway and Portage Hayes area, there's some easements. There are some where you were talking about with the railroad line south of Easttown, and we have some for Cap City Path. So there's 3 areas that are kind of ready for the improvement. That helps.
But I guess then let me ask specifically about East Wash, that area where you had that blue line showing.
Yeah, I think that's something that they can do within existing right away.
Right.
Okay, good. You mentioned the cost share for building all of this, and you said like it's a capital project, there's federal funding. What about maintenance, and what about maintenance specifically if those CD roads are going to happen? Who pays for that?
That's part of WisDOT's operating budget, and they typically contract with the county to maintain their facilities.
Okay, that is good to know. All right, I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Other comments or questions? Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks, Tom, for the presentation. I'll play off the modeling question and maybe take a simpler line of questioning here. I was also wondering, as Harold pointed out, we're showing, I mean, you're showing a bunch of development happening and no traffic increases. So we know the models don't have induced demand, but maybe the simpler question is, how transparent is WisDOT in their assumptions about what the land uses will look like and what trip generation will look like?
So WisDOT actually uses the demand model that's prepared by our MPO. And actually our MPO is a division of the city, believe it or not. So if we were to criticize the demand model, we'd be pointing the fingers back at us. The demand model reflects the anticipated land use that is in our adopted plans. And so the model that's there, right, is our model, and it reflects our plans. The locational changes and, you know, of induced demand are not, I haven't seen anything that actually helps project that, right? And so some people believe it doesn't exist. I think most of us understand that it does exist, but I don't know if there's a way that can be projected. Maybe you do. You know, if you have a doctorate in transportation, you might.
I mean, so I'm trying to move away from thinking about induced demand, and the question is just like, is there going to be a bunch of development there or not? And it seems odd that the models would show basically no more traffic with a bunch of development there.
Well, I think the model compares the build condition with the no build condition. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the no build, so it's looking at 2050, saying that this is what's in our plan, right? And this is being built. How does the interchange affect, you know,
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Okay. And I don't
yeah.
I don't think that they you know, what's in our plan is not assumed that it's fully built by 2050, right? What happens is our MPO staff meet with our development staff, Brian Grady's and the like, and say, well, we think that this has capacity and that perhaps 30% of this plan would be constructed by the horizon year of 2050. And that's
Right.
kind of how they do that.
Okay, so just clarifying for myself and for others on the commission, we don't know what the forecasted traffic increase overall is.
We can get that.
Right. But that's not reflected here.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to separate the development from the transportation infrastructure. Like that development will have to go through approvals, right? And our council or our plan commission can say yes or no to the development based on, and they can say no, you know, the traffic demand is too great and we don't approve of it. So that's a separate thing. It is in our plan, but you know, whether you agree with that development or not agree with that development, that's, you know, that's, so what we are asked to comment on is this infrastructure, right? And we've told the DOT that this is the plan that's in our, this is the development that's in our plan.
Yep. Okay. A couple design comments. To start with some good, I agree with you that the East Wash interchange has a lot going for it. Mainly that it will no longer, if you're getting off the interstate and going onto East Wash now, you basically just get a free ride, like no stop, you know. And so at least we're going to have a stop interchange there for anyone heading into the city there. So I like that. And then regarding the Hooker and Milwaukee interchanges, in terms of like our preference for one or the other alternatives that are here, it seems like a lot of it comes down to how those intersections are designed, you know, the roundabout versus the intersection. So the devil's in the details on that. I'm kind of wondering what's the city's role in actually designing those pieces, like the off interstate intersections.
So
in order to ensure that they're, you know, likable and all that.
yeah, I think they will go through an intersection control evaluation. It's called an ICE report, and they will do that during the design phase. I think we'll have the ability to influence that. It will be their facility, but right now, I'm going to just say, 20 years ago, everyone wanted roundabouts, right? Now, everyone wants diversion diamonds. And, 10 or 15 years from now, we don't know what everyone's going to want. Those decisions will probably be made at the time of the design. This is 65 miles and a 20-year project. And so, that won't occur. I think Chris probably could give you some examples of how they interacted with us on the County AB interchange. So Chris, maybe you could explain what that looked like.
Yeah, so, once the project got funded, we started having monthly meetings, staff and the design consultant and WSDOT staff, and worked through the design over the course of probably 2 years and worked out all the issues with, where the storm pond's going to be, where the, where the sanitary sewer is going to be, how the interchange configuration will be. And we, in that process and most of my process with WSDOT, they've been pretty good to, include us in the designs and we could ask for things and we don't always get them all. But like for instance, on County AB, we asked for an off ramp for the golf course area and we figured out a way to, get it in the project. And so my experience has been pretty good that they, work with us along the process and try to do what they can. But, not everything gets done.
Thanks. I guess just to that point, in a closing comment, we know there's been a lot, this is not the project that we would do, but there's been a lot of back and forth, several iterations. This is not our first time seeing it. And I know you've been sort of pushing all along the way to get better outcomes and appreciate that. So
I think maybe over I think we acknowledge that the interstate is kind of their facility, and ultimately they're going to have some of the controlling decisions. I think what we would like is on facilities that are kind of our facility, like John Nolan Drive, we would get the same kind of deference. And so we're understanding that we're taking the back seat, like on projects like the interstate, but we want to be in the front seat on projects like John Nolan Drive. So I think that's probably
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. Along those lines, so regarding the modernization plus versus the modernization hybrid, is the city actually supporting a lane expansion and you're just picking the lesser evil for political reasons? Or would deem what we actually want to not expand the footprint and number of lanes?
There is the no build alternative. I think they were going to dismiss the managed lane alternative 3 months ago, and we I'm just going to say we kind of vigorously opposed that. We said no, you need to bring it through into the environmental impact statement. They were going to dismiss it, and we're not even going to include it in the environmental impact statement. We asked that they not do that. Managed lane is not I guess we would say it's the lesser of what's presented.
All right, thank you.
Okay, a lot of good discussion. Other comments or questions? Okay, I would be looking for a motion.
So moved.
Okay, there's a motion. And Robbie, is that okay? There's a motion and a second. Did you wish to speak to your motion?
No, I do not.
Okay. Discussion. Chris.
Just wondering what the motion is, actually.
Oh, I thought I said I didn't. I apologize. Motion to accept the recommendation plan. I believe it's 1C. And the resolution.
So you're recommending supporting the resolution as
Correct.
stated. Okay. So the motion is to support the resolution as stated. And Robbie, that was your second?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion. Further discussion. Phil?
Thanks. Yeah, I really like the work that Tom and staff went into improving the 151 interchange to make that, to me, that's going to be the best improvement for the East Washington that we could hope for, and I think that's going to be a win-win for everybody, actually, frankly. So really happy to support that part of the plan, especially. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Other discussion. Harold.
Yeah, I mean, I think as people have probably gathered from my questions and comments earlier, I mean, I do have major concerns with the overall project. I acknowledge that it's a WSDOT project. We do not seem to have much influence over it. But, you know, when I see the slides of, I think I counted correctly, that slide that had the CD roads, I think that was 17 lanes. And so it's 2024. We have a climate emergency. We have adopted city goals to reduce VMT. And then we see something built with 17 lanes, then I just cannot support this. So this is not just, I appreciate the work that staff have done to get to some lesser evils in some regards. I think there are some good things in there. And I also acknowledge that maybe having stronger wording in the resolution does not have much impact. But yeah, I just cannot, with a clear conscience, support this. Thank you.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a clarification that the resolution does not concur with their capacity expansion. And so, if this resolution is not passed, which is fine, it means that we have not commented at all on their thing. So.
Right. My understanding of the motion is to support the resolution as stated, which shows that we concur with certain things and do not concur with other things. So further discussion. Okay, since we already know that we have some folks supporting and some folks opposed, why don't we do a roll call vote, Aiden?
All right. Alder Bennett,
Yes.
MGR Govindarajan,
Yes.
Dina Nina Martinez Rutherford.
Yes.
We have here. Robbie Weber,
Yes.
Pepe Barros,
Yes.
Chris McCahill,
Yes.
Nikki Vandermeulen,
Yes.
Bill Bremer,
Yes.
and Harold Kleems.
Nope.
Right, so that was 8 yeses and 1 no.
Okay, so the motion is carried. All right, thanks for the rigorous discussion and the helpful presentations. It's a huge project and one that obviously will take a long time to come to fruition. And Tom, we will have opportunities to comment again in the future based on what you said about the environmental statement. So
Yeah. And it will be important for us to capture as many commitments as we can at that next iteration where we comment.
okay, great. Well, thanks everybody. Next, let's move on to Safe Streets Madison. John and Renee. And I believe we have registrants, so we'll go through our presentation, hear from the registrants. I'm correct, am I not, Aiden, that we have registrants?
That is correct. We have several.
Okay, so we'll go through the presentation and then hear from the registrants and then have discussion.
All right, so I'm going to do a quick kind of presentation, quick overview, a few discussion items, nothing that necessarily has to be resolved tonight, but this is our first time coming for 2024, so wanted to put some things in front of you as we look to make continuous improvement in this program. So let me find that, and then Tom will take over after that. Okay, come on, slideshow. Here we go. All right, switch that. Okay, so first off, you should all probably know by now, there is a website. It has kind of the whole report that created this program. Tom has updated the spreadsheet of projects so that you can have that Excel if you want to look at things differently. It has approved projects, things under construction, and any public meeting info. That website address might be changing. We are working on bringing our website up to the 2024 standards. So we're one of the last, or we're not the last though, to get that updated. So that might be a little bit different the next time, but it should be easier to find actually with our update. First, I want to talk a little bit about where the budget sits. We did have like 1.6 million this year. As you'll probably note from the materials, we're bringing forward a big group this time of 1.1 million in projects. And we can take some questions about this later, but we have had some higher than anticipated costs from the first year of the program. So that may impact our overall funding. But we're also looking at the bids possibly coming in a little bit lower now. So, that can change. There's a lot of fluctuation in the contractor market right now. And we also are looking to hire an engineering consulting firm, which may be a little bit more expensive than when staff do the design, but we have a pretty big backlog of projects, and we would like to get more caught up. So we would need a little help because our staff, who does some of the more detailed engineering work, don't have a lot of capacity right now to take on getting us caught up. So as of April 1st, when we looked at everything, we had almost 3.4 in projects that had not yet been spent, but that does include 1.9 that we're estimating for projects not built but approved. As well as you may remember, or you may not, because it's been a while, there was an extra 1 million that was put into the budget to build what we call our East Madison Bikeway projects, which are to improving corridors kind of paralleling East Washington where there are bike lane impacts with the bus rapid transit. Those haven't come forward yet, but you are going to be starting to see those. We also have some consultants who are doing some survey work for us so that we can get those move forward and under contract. So those will be coming. So that 1 million is still sitting there to be spent, but is needed for those projects. This is just a quick reminder. Most of you know, many of you were involved in the creation of this program, but focusing really on those traffic fatalities and serious injuries, as well as safety that fosters walking, biking, and transit. Closing those gaps in the ped and bike networks are also equal kind of priority, just trying to align with Vision Zero and completing green streets. Process, we're here today because the Transportation Commission reviews and approves these requests. Thinking about those priorities and criteria that were set up. We try to bring things twice a year. We have actually brought them 3 or 4 times, many times. So this year we brought a bigger one this year, so it may not be the case. And we do try to do a lot of pre-screening to try to fit with those kind of priorities. That spreadsheet has kind of how we are looking at it. There is this idea that would kind of be improved over time. And also this idea that we do want to make sure that safety is at least 50% of this to move us forward with Vision Zero. All right, so we did want to discuss something. This is just our 3rd year, and a lot of our projects have been pretty small to mid-sized. I mean, I think maybe one of our biggest projects was just over 100,000. And one thing with the scoring, which we, as you'll see, have kind of not worried about, is that a lot of times that final score is going to be really low if it is a expensive project, even if it has a very high value in resolving kind of the safety or gap issue. So you will see that we brought some bigger ones. This Lean Road Sidewalk is definitely the biggest one that we have brought to date. But I did want to just highlight that just for thinking about. We feel like some of those expensive projects have a very high value, whereas the low one it's like a good project, but it doesn't have quite that same impact on safety, but is going to score well because it's inexpensive and has some impact. So just to think about. Also, we will be updating the high injury network. The citywide one is expected to be updated kind of early to mid 2025. And we also have funding through our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant to work with the TOPS Lab to do a pedestrian bicycle focused high injury network that also would have more of a predictive or sort of what is a typical type of street where we're seeing these crashes. So we could update the way that we are scoring projects for the high injury network, accounting for both of those. Right now, it's really very crash based. The more kind of serious or fatal crashes that have been in a location, the higher the score. But that could be done a little bit differently once we have this high injury network updated. So that's not something we need to decide right now, but as we move towards 2025, it would be a lot of work because as you'll see, we have well over 500 still on the list. It has not shrunk, even though we have approved a lot of projects. There's also a lot of projects still to be done. So that would take some time. So I wanted to kind of open up this discussion now so that we could kind of start thinking about how we want to integrate that update into this project scoring. It also could be that we score just for projects going forward, but that obviously would have some impacts on maybe not raising up some really good high quality projects. So there's that to think about. Also, through Safe Streets and Roads for All funding, we will be doing some work to prioritize gaps in the pedestrian network and in that all ages and ability bike network that we created through Complete and Green Streets. We could obviously these will be things that we might want to fund through Safe Streets if they're of a size that's manageable for our program. So I guess, should these be kind of things that are getting that highest score for ped gaps and bike gaps once we have that work done? So also, that's not going to be done right now. It's probably, that could be something that isn't even approved until kind of third quarter of 2025, because we'll just be starting that this summer. But something I thought would be worth kind of putting in front of you to think about now when there's no rush to decide. Now, something that we have talked about one time was kind of this idea of life cycle replacement and if that fits at all within Safe Streets. Last time we came, we had a discussion about the green marking that's at the Southwest Path and Monroe Street. And it's at the end of its lifespan, right? It is not, I mean, it's very close. It's very faded. It's gone in some places, scraped off. And we're seeing, you know, we're at a point where a lot of our rectangular rapid flashing beacons are kind of reaching a point where they need a high level of maintenance. There are some that may need a full replacement. There's other green marking that will be starting to age as well. Our epoxy and other paint markings, you know, we're doing a lot more of those. So, you know, that increases the need to consider life cycle replacement. Other things like bike signals or APS will also, you know, they do not last forever, as well as other kinds of dynamic signs like our speed feedback boards, some of the no turn on red. So we wanted to kind of get that in front of you to think about that, you know, you could replace them obviously when you do a full reconstruction of a road, but these aren't things that last as long as a road does. So just as we have more of them, this is it's increasing the difficulties in maintaining them. So, you know, when we ask for them, we ask for the original installation, but we don't consider what is that life cycle cost. Would there ever be one of these cases that you feel is more appropriate than when we discussed the green marking on Monroe Street? Would it be appropriate if we were, say, upgrading to a better technology? You know, we have funded going from like the flashing yellow lights that used to be popular to the RFBs, because it's kind of a new upgrade to a different technology. You know, is it something like that where if there's been an improvement, that might be more acceptable? So we wanted to get that in front of you. It's definitely concerning as we put in more things as to how do we maintain them, because that safety benefit, you know, goes away if we can't maintain them and they're not reliable. And that is what I wanted to share for discussion. And I know Tom has more on the actual list to talk about.
Thanks, Renee. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thanks. I always struggle about how to best present this list because we've got 29 projects, could easily spend 5 minutes on each, and that would take about 2.5 hours. So I think what I'll do is go through the narrative that was included on the agenda item, which kind of groups similar projects together. And I'll just spend a few seconds on each one, and hopefully we can get through this pretty quick. But I don't want to try to make it seem like we're burying projects or we don't want to discuss a project, because I think these are all important. So I do want to at least look at each one. So the first group of projects are RRFBs. We've got 5 proposed. The first one is at Cross Country Road and Ice Age Junction Trail. So that's at the way far southwest corner of the city. This is Verona over here. This is Madison. Here's the path. So Cross Country Road, very high speeds. Right now, someone has put some signs out here, warning signs that aren't the city's, but we feel like this is a case where RFB is make a clear improvement for safety. Next one is Park Street at Chandler Street. This is kind of just north of West Washington Avenue, this crossing here. So here's residential on the east side, hospital on the west side, difficult crossing across multiple lanes. These are projects that rank really high with the RFBs and how much they help with crossing. So it's kind of a classic case of that. High volume.
I'm really sorry to interrupt. I have a quick question. Can you just explain what RFPs are or what they look like?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. RRFB. So that's rectangular rapid flashing beacon. That's the quick strobe light pattern of flashers that pretty much all of them are push button activated by pedestrians, but they have a very high rate of driver yielding. So the effectiveness is very high. So they score very high in our program.
Think the Southwest Path at West Washington.
Are they the ones that go on top of the road or just on the side of the road?
So we have both. We are trialing kind of a less expensive version where they're just on the side. Typically, if we have multiple lanes, we want at least something overhead. But there are both options. On East Washington, we've got them and they're overhead. So if they're going across multiple lanes, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But
okay. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem.
That's okay. And if we could try and hold the questions till after we hear from the public, that would be great. But that's a good clarifying to remind everybody what RRFB stands for. Go ahead, Tom.
Yep, I should have gone through that. I'm sorry about that. Next one is Raymond Road at Frisch. So this is southwest side of the city. Raymond Road, kind of notorious for high speeds, high crashes. Frisch Road is the street just east of McKenna. So McKenna is signalized, but Frisch is not. There was a pedestrian crash here. We're trying to do more improvements across Raymond Road. It's a difficult pedestrian crossing. Fourth one is Olin Avenue at Lake Court. So Olin Avenue comes off of John Nolan Drive. I think this one is especially good to do soon with the John Nolan Drive reconstruction coming up. It's going to push more traffic onto Olin Avenue. So Lake Court is this little street right here. It's kind of the connection to the swimming pool and the park on the south side. And the last RRFB location is East Gorham at Blount. That is right here. Crashes again, high volume. RFBs are really effective on streets, one-way streets, especially like this, where you have a really high rate of driver compliance to it. The next group of projects are sidewalks and path connections. So the first one is the west side of South Thompson Road, just south of Cottage Grove Road. It's on the east side. There's a section right here of South Thompson that doesn't have sidewalk that we think is an obvious spot to make a sidewalk connection. There are multiple pedestrian crashes here. One was specifically because a person was crossing the intersection here, where it looked like if there were a sidewalk that wouldn't have happened. Second one is Nelson Road. Tom mentioned this area in his presentation with the 151 connection. So that's up here. This is High Crossing Boulevard. This is that path that goes to Sun Prairie. So this is a really nice connection underneath 151. But the connection to it is not, well, basically non-existent from the east. We just repaved Nelson Road and we got bike lanes in. You can see on this aerial up to Morgan Way. So from Morgan Way to the path, there's no connection. So we think this is kind of another obvious location where there should be the path connection. Next location is West Badger Road, just east of Park Street. So this is Burger King here. You can see we have sidewalk on the north side, but no connection on the south side. We kind of worked out with Burger King that we could fit in sidewalk here to the future Center for Black Excellence development that will be going into this site. They will be adding sidewalk along their site, but unless we get this in some way, that sidewalk will lead to nowhere. We would have pedestrians crossing or walking through the parking lot. The fourth sidewalk location is Blaine Drive. It's on the north side of the city by Mendota Elementary. So here's Mendota Elementary. Here's Blaine Drive. We've got sidewalk on Blaine Drive up to the last block to get to the school. So there's no connection here for this one parcel, and then no connection on the north side of Blaine Drive on this block. So we think that we should make both of these connections, especially since it's so close to a school. Next one is Lean Road from Parkside. So we got a couple projects here proposed. So Lean Road is the connection between East Washington Avenue and Lean Road, Thier Road to the east. This is where we had a recent fatality of a bicyclist struck by a westbound left turn vehicle. The bicyclist was on the sidewalk transitioning to the street. So we looked at this. There's a sidewalk gap here along this entire stretch. We think it's worth it to connect that gap. We also think that Lean Road is overbuilt with 4 lanes. It's well below the volume that a two-lane center turn lane, Twiddle Street, could handle. So with that, we would grind off the markings, put down new markings with a buffered bike lane to have a center turn lane. And we've got that in I think in 2 lines on the scoring sheet. So there's that project, and then we scored the sidewalk project separately because it is quite a bit more expensive than just the marking project. And the last sidewalk connection is South Stoughton Service Road at the future Occupy Madison site. So here's Stoughton Road. Here's the service road, which becomes Atlas. And this is just south, or this would be a connection between the pedestrian overpass bridge at Portland Parkway down to the future Occupy Madison site, which is this site here at the curve. So no sidewalk right now along that site. We think that that's a really important connection with that development to get them pedestrians up to Portland Parkway and the overpass. Next group of projects are pavement markings. First location is South Mill Street, kind of in between, or at the very south end of Mill Street, in the hospital area. So right now there's no parking. We've got the width to make the bike lane connection. There's no existing bike lanes here. So it's a very simple, easy project to get a bike on-street bike lane connection, both directions. Next one is Spring Street to connect up the counterflow bike lane. So this is the campus area to the north, Dayton Street. We've got a counterflow bike lane. Orchard Street is one-way southbound. We have the northbound bike lane, but that only goes to Spring Street. So we can make the connection from Spring Street down across the southwest path to Regent Street. Next location is North Lake Street and Francis Street. So this is something that came up this past Kohl Center event season. With the demolition of the Lake Street side of the parking garage, the city parking garage, forced pedestrians to the east side or the main pedestrian walk route from the ramp to the Kohl Center, and just created general overall congestion on Lake Street and Francis Street. And what we notice is that when the streets get really congested, traffic blocks the existing pavement markings. So if you're unfamiliar with the area, and we saw this a lot, drivers just seem confused as to whether, which lane they should be in. So then they get up to the intersection and turn from the right lane or go straight through from the left lane. So we think because of the extremely high pedestrian area and then the really bad congestion, especially during Kohl Center events, to just increase the pavement marking symbols to clarify that for drivers and hopefully reduce the confusion at the intersections. Next one is, it looks like I skipped or moved around a little bit, but westbound Aberg at Sherman Avenue. This is up here. So right now, Aberg has eastbound bike lanes, but the westbound bike lane kind of just ends and bikes go with traffic in the right turn lane for westbound Aberg Avenue at Sherman. And this was, this idea came from Metro Transit. They're having difficulties with this area. We looked at the volumes, and we feel that one lane can take the westbound traffic here. So what we would do is remove the right turn only lane. The one lane becomes left through and right, and then we can extend the bike lane all the way to the stop bar, and that helps bikes and Metro at the same time. Lean Road, we talked about road diet. Next one is the Bike Boulevard connections for the future. Where am I here? Here we go. Future overpass, Autumn Ridge Path over Highway 30. So Ziegler Road is this short street, north-south street, that will connect from the future overpass to the bike path up here. And we've got Ziegler and Stein and Portland Parkway. So Stein is on the other side, which will be part of the bike route with that new path. And then that will connect down across Milwaukee Street to Portland Parkway. So with this project, we are proposing a bike boulevard signing and marking treatment on those three streets: Portland Parkway, Stein Avenue, and Ziegler Road. We've got some green bike markings that we're proposing. First one's at Whitney Way and the Beltline. So these, I think Renee's the expert on this one, but she's worked out with WSDOT to allow us to get some green markings in here and bike detection for this area, which has been a real difficult bike location because drivers just aren't paying attention to bikes. They're concerned about traffic and trying to get off of the Beltline. Next location is Middle Point Road and the Beltline. So kind of same thing. So we've got the path here. Same thing with the Beltline ramps, green markings across. And it's the same at Cottage Grove Road and Stoughton Road. So this would be at the ramps. We've got a few traffic signal improvements at several different locations. The first one is at University and Park Street. So this is a location that has quite a few bike crashes each year. Heavy westbound left turns. Actually, it's a westbound left turn only lane right now onto Park Street. Bikes do have their own phase here, but we think that adding yellow backing, there seems to be a few crashes that involve either bikes going when they don't have the signal, or just westbound left turn drivers just not knowing that bikes are coming. Next location is northbound Francis at University Avenue. So this is similar issue with the Kohl Center events. So Francis University, especially made worse now with that Lake Street side of the ramp being closed. So that forces a lot more traffic to use Francis Street, and all the people that park on the Francis side are walking on this through this crosswalk. And right now it's just a simple phase, just a permissive left. So Francis northbound is backed up. One or maybe two left turns can make it through between pedestrians, and there's a lot of close calls. It's just a kind of a mess out there during every Kohl Center event. Next location is Midvale Boulevard. So Midvale at Odana, we had several crashes on Midvale Boulevard at Odana and Tokay recently. And again, right now it's only permissive left turns, simple red and green phase, and just a lot of crashes involving left turns from Midvale to Odana, and same thing at Tokay. Drivers trying to quickly make that left turn, getting struck by through movements. So we think that pretty obvious fix of adding protected left turn phases for those locations. Now this next one's a little bit different, that we haven't brought something like this in the past, but we think it is worth it. We broke it into two phases, and I actually have a picture here. So this is a crash map in the campus area. So this is Park Street here, University Avenue, Johnson Street. A lot of crashes. These are all crashes. Orange are high injury, yellow are minor injury. But we've got a lot of intersections here that don't have the pedestrian countdown timers. And because these are such high pedestrian intersections, pretty much every one of them, we think that it makes sense to upgrade to the countdown timers. So whether we think that that is enough of an improvement that should qualify for the program, but this is something new that we haven't proposed in the past. So I just wanted to bring that up. So yeah, broken down into two groups. This was one group is the pink area and one is the green. And then bike detection at Whitney Way in the Beltline. So that's just adding detection there at the location that I showed for the green markings. And then we've got two concrete projects, just one speed hump location for this year. So this is at Jackson Quarry Lane, which this is the Harmony apartment development here. So you can see this is kind of like a cut through here between the parking lot and Jackson Quarry Lane. And one thing I would note is that we scored this high. We gave it a high score because of the gun violence fatalities. So there was two fatalities in 2023, one in July, one in October, I think, with other injuries. But and I think we have people to speak on this too, but one of the issues is that this is kind of makes for an easy getaway on Jackson Quarry and through the parking lot. So we think this is rises to the level where it makes sense to fund this through Safe Streets Madison, because we think that it is while it's not directly related to a crash history problem on the street, we think that the gain or the benefits from a speed hump or two here is worth including in Safe Streets Madison. And the last location is Park Street at Haywood. So Haywood Drive Drive is the connection here between West Shore Drive and Wingra Mills area here. So we've got this little sidewalk connection. So this is kind of a bike route connection. And we had approved an RFB at this location in the past. Look, we've already got the yield lines in there, but we ran into the issue of this median being too narrow, unable for us to get our infrastructure in there. So the proposal is to fill in this southbound left turn bay to the car wash to fit in the infrastructure for the RRFB crossing here at this crosswalk. And that is it for projects.
Okay, a lot of good projects to consider. Aiden, I believe we have registrants before we go to questions, comments, and discussion.
All right. So first we have Tony Dreyfus of Lawrence Street supports and wishes to speak.
Go ahead, Tony. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name's Tony Dreyfus. I am a resident of the Bay Creek neighborhood. I live at 1017 Lawrence Street between Olin and Lakeside. I've lived there with my family since 2017. I have 3 daughters. The oldest is 19. She's a freshman at the U. I have a 12-year-old that's a 6th grader at Hamilton. And then I have a 17-year-old daughter who is at West High and is disabled and in a wheelchair. We've lived here for, like I said, since 2017. And in that time, my kids have taken the bus to school, and the bus lets off on Olin. And the kids need to cross Olin in order to get back to the Bay Creek neighborhood. There's not a single place between John Nolan Drive and Park Street where traffic is told to stop. There's no stop sign. There's no traffic light. And the current crossings at Lakeport by the pool are kind of more gentle suggestions. I've stood there, I can't tell you how many times, at the edge of the street with my daughter in a wheelchair with a 12-year-old on my hand, and no one stops. They're going, well over the speed limit. And, as an adult, dangerous for me. And the kids have to cross. The bus lets off on the south side of Olin. They have to cross the street, and there's just no safe way for them to do that. Also, the pool is there. So any of the kids that go to the public pool, which is, really all the kids, and try to cross, there's not a safe way for that to happen. So I'm speaking in support for something to be done to make it safer for my kids and the other kids in the neighborhood. To be honest, I'm a little skeptical that a flashing light will stop cars, but I trust your judgment. You have a lot more experience and research in this than I do. I'm hoping for the best, really for the good of the community. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody have a question for Tony? Harold.
Yeah, thanks for speaking. To follow up on what you said at the very end, that you were skeptical about whether this would actually work. Do you have any thoughts on what would be a safer option?
I think a stop sign would be great. I think it's fair to signal, by law for cars to stop so that children and other people can cross Olin to get to the park, to get to the dog park, to get to the pool, and to be able to cross from the bus. But I don't know if that's something that you folks handle, or if that's through a different mechanism in the city.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Anybody have any other questions for him? Okay, who else do we have, Aiden?
Next, we have Alexandre Minot of Canterbury Road supports and wishes to speak.
Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you for receiving me. Yes, I'd like to support item number 5. To give a bit of context to Tom's presentation, I'd like to give a bit more detail about item 26 on the list, which is the Whitney Way, the Beltline exit onto Whitney Way. The plan is to add paint and bike detection. So to give a bit of context, I've been hit by cars 3 times at that intersection, and I saw a lady get run over by a concrete truck. So, you know, the fact that this is the 4th to last item on the list means that all of these items really need to get done. And in fact, I believe that the Safe Street has about 10 times the numbers that are being presented today. I think it's really important for the city to continue to do what it's doing, but also to do much more. A lot of the project, even the bike and pedestrian project, are still done in a car-centric manner. The example is the current infrastructure that's in place at the crossing in question uses buttons as a mode of detections. This is not a good way to detect bikes or wheelchair users. So I'm glad to see that we're adding bike detection. It's still not enough. I don't see how a wheelchair user would be able to cross there when the snow, when the plows snow walls that make it inaccessible for the buttons. And you know, more generally, since I'm in front of this commission, I'd like to say that Madison is expanding, it's densifying, so we can do what European cities have done, which is wait until the city is completely locked down by cars and then scramble to put in place bike infrastructure, or we can do that now. You know, I'm not against cars. I drive as much as I bike. I work for the automotive industry. I just want a balance between the different modes of transportation so that I can continue to walk, bike, and drive. You know, I can only continue to drive if bike infrastructure is put in place, and so that the city doesn't become super congested. So yeah, in favor of that and far more projects. I think that the city staff is receptive to these items. They're receptive to bike infrastructure, and I think that's an opportunity to do far more than what we're doing right now. Thank you. And if there's any questions or comment, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments for the registrant? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much for your comments. Who do we have next, Aiden?
So next we have Natalie Eisner of Potter Street, Madison. Neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak. I don't see their name, but I do see somebody named iPhone. I don't know if.
Sorry, can you hear me? This is Natalie's husband, Victor.
Oh.
Okay. Yep. All right.
Sorry, she had to. Yeah. So I wanted. We also you know, we generally support flashing lights at Olin. You know, so we have the same concern that Tony Dreyfus does for the Olin crossing, and we flashing lights are great, but like Tony mentioned, there's actually not a single spot where cars will stop. And there's about to be a Cedar Street cut through, you know, from Fish Hatchery, which I expect is going to bring more traffic onto Olin, as well as, you know, as was mentioned during the presentation, the John Nolan Drive construction is also going to bring traffic to Olin. And so, you know, I think flashing lights are maybe the bare minimum, but I would agree with Tony that a stop sign would be more appropriate, or even a stop light. And I'll also mention that there's a school, Franklin Elementary School is just a block away, and there's a lot of kids who cross Olin, in the morning and in the afternoon going to and from school. So, and that's not even to mention the swimming pool, which is sitting right at that spot where there's tons of kids crossing over the summer, over the 3-month period over the summer. So, I'm in favor of it, but I would certainly prefer something beyond flashing lights.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody have any questions for the registrant? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. Who else do we have in?
Next, we have Charita Martin of Jackson Quarry Lane. Supports and wishes to speak, but I don't believe I see them in the registrant list or in the Zoom list.
I'm sorry, what was the name?
Charita Martin.
Okay, yeah. Don't see them.
After that, we have Victoria Wickersheim, South Thompson Drive, supports and is available for questions.
Okay,
They did send in a public comment as well.
sure. Yeah, we saw a number of comments.
I'm here.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Victoria? Okay, see no hands. Thank you very much, everybody, for your comments and for coming tonight. Comments or questions for Renee and Tom? Robbie. Oh, hang on one second. Somebody just Victoria, you registered just in support, not wishing to speak? Was that not correct?
Sorry, I'm actually reaching out to Miss Rita to see if she's able to jump onto Zoom right now in reference to the Jackson Quarry speed bumps. I know she feels very strongly. She lives right on that street there. And I know it's something that she deems very important.
You're talking about the registrant that was not here?
Yes, ma'am. I'm on the phone with Miss Rita right now. I'm going to see if she's able to jump onto Zoom, and she's one that requested to speak on behalf of it.
Okay, thank you. Ariana, could you please just kind of watch and see if during the course of our discussion we see her sign into Zoom?
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you. Robbie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. So you mentioned some change at Francis and Park due to left turning drivers either not being able to make a left turn or not yielding to pedestrians. Could you explain a little bit more about what the change is and how that will improve the situation?
Sure. So yeah, I'll go back here. So the proposal here is to add the reflective yellow backing to the traffic signals. So bikes here, eastbound, do have their own signal up here. It's hard to see.
So
right there.
This is Park Street, but you were talking about Francis.
Yeah, so there's two different things. There's Park and University, and then Francis and University is for unrelated to bikes.
No, I realize that. But you said that when Cole Center traffic lets out, there's a lot of pedestrian traffic crossing to the ramps. Yep. And you also have a lot of northbound drivers trying to make a left turn, and they can't make the left turn because there's not enough space, And B, they almost hit the pedestrians because they're impatient. So my question was, what exactly were you proposing that would improve either of those situations?
Yeah, so right now, so this is looking north. We'll have a queue of southbound traffic coming out of the parking garage, a queue of northbound traffic kind of leaving the event.
Mhm.
It's problems before and after events, and it's really just a problem kind of all the time now because of the parking garage situation, and Francis just getting a lot more traffic. So it's just a simple, two-phase, basically, signal. So Francis gets the green, Peds walk, and then University gets the green. So what is happening right now is that by the time the pedestrians filter through, they basically use the entire signal phase. So then once the pedestrians get through enough so there's a little bit of a gap, you've got right turning vehicles trying to get through here, and then you have left turning vehicles coming from the south trying to squeeze through here, and there's pretty much close calls almost every signal phase after Cole Center events. So it's just kind of the drivers are fighting pedestrians to try to get through. And so the solution would be to add a protected left turn green arrow phase to the signal.
Okay, that's what was unclear. I understand the problem.
Okay, yeah.
I understand what the solution was. I didn't catch that.
Gotcha. Yep.
So
Sorry
you're
about that.
putting a left turn arrow in.
Yep.
Which won't necessarily help right turning drivers, but it will help left turning drivers. Right.
Right. It will probably also help right turning drivers because it will create the gaps in the pedestrians. That's
I see. Okay, so they'll be able to make a right turn, a permissive right turn.
Right.
Okay, I got it.
Right.
I got it. Okay. I have two more questions. So I just didn't catch what the solution was there.
Okay. Yep.
So that's why I was asking. Could you explain what exactly type of bicycle detection you're proposing for Whitney and the Beltline?
Sure, I can probably talk about that more. Otherwise, I don't know if... Oh, Jerry's here. Perfect, because Jerry's the one who'd be working on that. So I'll let him take it.
Everybody knows. I believe the registrant is here, but we'll let Robbie finish and then we'll move to the registrant and then go on with the rest of our comments. So let's finish what Robbie has. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, so we would just be looking at some pretty simple loop detection on the southbound side of that crosswalk, and I guess it'd be the eastbound side on the other side, and then if we can, and then the northbound side kind of by the controller. So basically on every approach, cut in a loop detection zone, and then that would call the corresponding phase. So someone on a bike doesn't have to go up, push the button. They would be automatically detected. This is something we've done in other locations, and so it's fairly low tech, but it works.
Okay, and so then drivers would get a red, or would they get a no turn on red for right turning?
Correct. So right now, if you were to push the button, you get the walk, and then the no turn on red comes up. But the specific request was, some people can't reach the button, and it's very difficult if you're on a bike to reach the button. So we've done this at other places like Aberg and Shopko is a good example of one where we have a loop detector and it just calls the walk. So it would automatically call the walk the next cycle. And even in the eastbound direction, we could have it call the walk to cross Whitney Way, and then also at the next cycle, give you the next phase. So that's what we're looking at doing.
Okay. I just have one more question, and then we can go back to the person who needed to speak. So in talking about maintenance of the things we put in for Safe Streets Madison, are you saying that the maintenance comes out of the Safe Streets Madison pot of money instead of the general maintenance fund for other traffic and roadway markings and signals? I mean, why is it separate from generalized traffic operations maintenance? Or did I misunderstand?
Yeah, so it doesn't come out of the budget currently, but as we grow the amount, our budgets aren't enough to really meet the growing demand for maintenance.
Mhm.
And obviously, it becomes more of an issue as we kind of reach that point at which we started to put in a lot of these items. And we have a larger budget to maintain them. So, we have talked about it once in terms of the green markings at Monroe Street, and we decided that that wasn't something that the committee felt was appropriate, but we wanted to kind of revisit it on a larger scale, as well as what if it was more of a new technology or improvement versus just a, basic repair, just to kind of get a feel for the committee as we go forward. I think, there's a lot more conversations about the difficulties of the operations budget, which is where frequently things come, but, kind of thinking about it from a life cycle replacement kind of point of view as well.
I guess I would have questions as we discuss this about how much the things we're putting in due to Safe Streets Madison adds to the general operating budget that we're doing for all traffic operations. So, why, I understand we have a budget issue. I understand that, but what's the, what is the marginal cost of maintaining these items versus all of our traffic signals, paint, repairs, everything like that? That would be my question. And I know you probably don't have an answer to it, but I think that's something we have to consider. I don't want to keep the public comment held up too long, but that was just kind of my initial reaction was, why are we obsessing about this particular type of maintenance as opposed to all of our road maintenance? And are we really adding an additional substantial amount to what we're paying to maintain our entire roads systems? So that's it.
Okay, thanks, Robbie. Unless you had anything else to add, Renee, before we move to the registrant?
I think Yang does, so.
Okay, go ahead, Yang.
Yeah, thank you. Really quickly, I think Robbie asked a great question, and she made a great point. We actually have been looking into a few different options as we have run into this issue of we are adding more facilities, especially through the Safe Streets program, but running into how can we keep it working once it's added. So I would say instead of like general maintenance, we'll probably carve some of the cost that makes sense, maybe develop a kind of life cycle management program instead of like small maintenance stuff. So this will be for like major things instead of like a small ongoing maintenance. Some other options we look at will be requesting more general operating funds to help cover all of this. And they will be actually being pretty serious working on that. However, what we feel like, with the operating budget issues we're facing right now, we cannot count on that. But in the meantime, as we have, staffing issues between us and the engineering division that's, being available to deliver, more capital projects, we sort for a short term, use some Safe Streets funds to do the life cycle management program for some large cost items. will help us get through the challenges, for the near term. But for a long term, we definitely be looking to, other options as well. So that's why, we, after discussion, we want to bring this up, for discussion. But definitely we can understand the concerns, but we feel like, at this point, this point of time, this might actually be the solution. But we'll definitely be open for, for feedback and discussions. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Yang. So more to follow on that and more discussion. I'm assuming that the registrant iPhone 3 is, can you identify yourself, please?
My name is Sharita Martin, and I live at 24 Jackson Quarry Lane.
Yes, go ahead. We're happy to hear from you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, well, how you doing? So I'm calling. I have concerns about the speed bumps over here, and they were saying that they was gonna do all of these things for us over here when the little girl Kaisha got killed. They told us they was gonna do the speed bumps, but now nobody has anything to say, and we need it for the safety of the kids. It's across the street from a park, and I live right directly across the street from the park, and I can tell you at least 30 kids almost got hit because people speed down the street constantly. We really, really need speed bumps for the safety of the children. And I'm begging y'all, please. I don't care if y'all make 2, put 2 or 3 right here. Just please help us out over here. Everyone over here is not bad. Just please help us.
Well, thank you very much for your comments. Does anyone have, right now we have Alder Govindarajan, Harold, and Pepe have their hands up. Does anybody have a question for the registrant with regard to the speed humps on Jackson Quarry? Okay, we really appreciate hearing from you very much. And I think that, did you have anything else to say? Okay, thank you so much. All right, we'll go back to Alder Govindarajan.
Thank you. I have a couple quick questions. It goes back to Francis and University, or sorry, not there specifically, but we were explaining the dedicated left-hand signal over there. I know that's also an issue at Park and University. And then you guys were also talking about a bike upgrade. Can we just review that one more time? I got a little confused on what's being placed where. Because I've spoken about, let's go with the Park one first, I guess. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. So right now, this signal timing phasing, it does, so pedestrians get the walk light, they clear out, and then northbound left turn has their own protected phase. So that's kind of similar, basically what we're proposing at Francis Street. The issue at Park Street is more with the eastbound bikes and the westbound left turns. So that's a pretty common crash that we see because westbound left turns are so high. It seems like some of those drivers don't realize, even with the green paint, that bikes are coming east, and sometimes it seems like eastbound bikes may miss the bike signal that's there. So the proposal for that is just to put the yellow retroreflective backing that borders the traffic signal heads. So it's just something that calls out the traffic signals better visually. So no changes to the actual timing or signal phasing, but upgrading the just how the signal heads look to people on the street.
Okay, got it. Thank you. I know there's similar issues when people are crossing University, people going southbound on Park Street, but turning right also have that same issue as what you described on Francis Street. That wouldn't be affected here. Like, that's not being changed very much, correct?
Right. No, not here for this project.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Harold, go ahead.
Thank you. Since we're still at Park Street, I may as well quickly ask that question. Can somebody refresh my MUTCD experimental treatment, yada yada? So this is a bike signal at that intersection. And isn't it that when you have a bike signal, you're not supposed to have conflicting movements? All right, Jerry, question.
So they do have their
Jerry,
separate phases.
go ahead.
Yeah, so the phases are all separated, but wait, now I'm questioning that. But I'm pretty. I'm.
Jerry's here if you want him to handle that, Tom.
Sure, Jerry, jump in if you're.
Yeah, I can take that. So this is a bit of a technicality thing here, but the MUTCD interim approval for bicycle signal faces and the new MUTCD, it only covers when the bicycle signal face is of that certain type. When it is just a signal, as we're showing here, then you are allowed to have those permissive movements. So that's like this location and the northbound bike movement at Bassett and Johnson. They're just kind of ways to indicate two bikes when they can go, but it's not fully protected. It's a very nuanced thing, but that's the way that works. And I will say, I think about a year or two ago, we did make some signal timing changes here, which adds essentially a leading bike interval. Because we knew we had that left turn crash problem. So some of the signal offsets have been changed to try and get bikes to arrive on a red, so that when they get their green the next cycle, they're taking advantage of I think it's like a 6-second head start before the opposing westbound University gets a green. So that permissive left, that should be enough time for that crosswalk to completely fill with pedestrians and bikes to usually almost get all the way across.
Thank you. That makes sense. And maybe for the benefit of the other people in the commission, yes, there's a sign that says bicycle signal, which is not the same as having an actual signal with a bike on the light. So that's the technicality differentiation. And yes, that LPI makes a lot of difference. So appreciate that. Thank you. Whitney Way, Beltline, bike detection. Do the loop detectors work for people using wheelchairs? I think the commenter mentioned people in wheelchairs also having a hard time reaching the buttons.
That is a very good question. If they're cut into the pavement, I mean, I don't know for sure, but if they're cut into the pavement, they're going to have the best chance at working. So that would be something interesting to see. I mean, we can bring a wheelchair out to our existing detection and try that.
Cool. Yeah, I think that would be really good to actually know if it works, how it works, if it works differently depending on where you place it. So I think that's worth investigating. Much appreciated. Yeah, and then I feel like this whole discussion about life cycle costs and how project scores, I feel like we're going to revisit that at some point. One comment I want to make, though, that maybe combines those two things. So Renee or Tom, you had pointed out that some of the expensive projects don't score terribly well, whereas a $4,000 signal backing plate does, and whether that's a good thing. I do wonder, aside from the fact which budget the life cycle costs come out of, whether one way to change the scoring would be when we calculate the cost benefit to put the life cycle cost into that column at that point and see what that does. I don't have a super good sense, like say, a sidewalk, expensive, but also lasts really long and therefore doesn't have much ongoing cost. As you said, signals, they only last, RFPs, they only last so long. And so if we put in whatever, maybe the 30-year cost or the 15-year cost, whatever makes sense, into that cost benefit column? I'd be very curious to explore that.
Right. That, in my opinion, that's probably the best way to do it, because you could kind of easily change those scores based on the 30-year cost, because you know concrete is going to be a one-time cost, but green is going to be maybe 5 times the initial cost based on how often you have to replace that. And then the RRFBs have typically been lasting about 10 years, so you could just multiply that by 3. That seems like a more appropriate way to at least rank the projects, because yeah, if it's concrete, it's generally just going to rank lower because of the cost.
Yeah, so let's keep that in mind as we come back to this. And then the other question, like specifically with pavement markings, I read an article a while ago, I think this was the city of Austin, who for reasons of like paint being expensive to maintain, switched to red colored concrete, which higher initial outlay, much lower lifetime costs. Just have you considered that at all?
I think there are a few benefits to the actual high friction surface of the pavement marking versus the concrete, and the color in the concrete usually just is kind of dull. Right. You're kind of, actually, if you look on East Washington right now, you can see the difference between the red concrete at the BRT stations versus the red lane MMA markings. It's just, yeah, it's a little bit different. So I don't know if we have I don't think we've used green concrete, but yeah, we've done the red. And if you remember, in the past, we had the red crosswalks on East Washington Avenue, and those kind of really faded out to, even though it was in the concrete, and I'm not sure if it's the same product now, but anyway, that kind of faded out to where we just put the Continental crosswalks on top of that to make them more visible. And it's the same thing on Willie Street.
Okay. Yeah, it might be also worth looking at, like, if there's any research on the effectiveness of bright green versus, well, yeah, admittedly dull red, and yeah, just something to look into. All right. Thanks all. And I should say, these are all really valuable projects. And as you said, there's 500 more, and probably most of those have value too. So we just got to keep working our way down the list. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Harold. Pepe, go ahead.
Thank you. And yeah, the one question I had is related to the total life cycle cost, as well as Harold and Robbie had mentioned. So a lot of what I was wondering has been covered by those questions, but I just wanted to, highlight that as an item that would be worth visiting again in the future, as, in the past, many times when we are looking at how we prioritize projects, and if we land at, similar scoring and it ends up being up to the commission, for example, to decide on projects, the conversation a lot of times land on what are going to be the operational costs or maintenance costs, and are we able to cover those? So I guess those are important questions to consider and to evaluate, and potentially as both including it in the scoring system, as Harold and Tom were just mentioning, but also understanding that as we include those costs in the same budget, that will be a way to also reduce the amount of projects that we can cover. So it's always a trade-off, and it'd be good to spend some time defining how that trade-off is going to ultimately affect the decision making.
Thanks, Pepe. Anybody from staff have any comments on that before we move on to Chris? Okay, Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. So on just a couple projects, I was wondering about matching the right solution to the problem. The first one being the what is it, Johnson University pairing corridor, where you talked about the countdown walk signals, which seemed like a great idea. Have you dug into the crashes enough to know that that's like part of the problem is that people are crossing late and then cars are hitting them or something?
No, we kind of just looked at the general pedestrian crash map and located where we have higher pedestrian crashes. We didn't look at each individual crash report and see. And a lot of the times, you're probably not going to get that information. Unlikely to get it at least in the crash report. Usually, it's just kind of pedestrian was crossing, struck by westbound, and whoever had the light. It is about as detailed as they get. So
that's what I figured, I guess. But I still don't think it's a bad idea to do those. I'm just not sure it's going to fix the problem. I know a lot of the time there when I'm crossing, maybe in a risky way, it's because I'm trying to catch a bus or something. So, and then on the Jackson Quarry, which is obviously a really unique one. Did you consider anything other than a speed hump? I mean, it seems like there's maybe opportunities for just sort of preventing traffic from using that as a cut through. In really extreme cases, I don't know that a speed hump is. I don't know. Have you thought about it?
No, we didn't really have other options here because of the type of complaint that it was that people were maybe doing something illegally, and then because there's such an easy way in and out, or an easy way out in this case, I think the feedback was that, to physically slow them down from making, I guess, people feeling comfortable from doing something from their car because they know they can easily get out of there. Of course, this only would take one route out. There's still the parking lot to get out to Milwaukee Street. So yeah, it's different.
It's a obviously unique situation. I think it's worth trying something here. I guess I have a follow-up question on the scoring behind this one, because obviously this is a unique case. Usually we don't see speed humps rise to the top of scores like this one. Did you count gun violence in the score?
Yes. Yep. So 2 fatalities takes it to top. Take those away, it's going to rank very low. It's going to rank, because this is such a common request. There's speeding on my street. We're by a park. There's kids in the area. We kind of hear that all over. So if we were to rank it based on that criteria that we rank all the other streets, it would rank low, just like all those other streets.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's kind of like, it doesn't fall under the program, and yet it is a safety concern and issue. And there have been, you can make the argument that this could be the most important and highest, most effective project in the whole program. So yeah, it's just completely different,
I have one more unrelated, but I'll let Alderfield jump in.
Okay, do you want me to come back to you after Alderfield then, Chris? Okay, Alderfield, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner and Chair. So I wanted to just chime in on the piece about the through driving pattern. One of the projects that Harmony's management or their ownership are looking at right now is the possibility of controlling access to and through the parking lot. But they are running into some fire lane access restrictions with the fire department. And so we are not yet certain of the prospects of restricting through access through the driveway there, which is one of the reasons why we're pushing more for the speed bump as hopefully more of a sure thing. So I just wanted to provide that background. Thank you all.
Thank you, Alder. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, appreciate that. Last question, completely unrelated, as I said. Renee mentioned because of the capacity problems using some consultants more on these. Just kind of curious, I know we've got great designers on city staff who work with neighborhoods really well. Are you thinking about some projects that just don't require as much sort of care that would be better for consultants? Because I would hate to see some of these projects get, outsourced and then city staff have to come in and fix things that consultants didn't think of.
I think what we're thinking about with the consultant is, so right now, any project that requires a surveying crew to go out, get the surveying data, bring it back, look at the grades, mostly things like that, because right now it's just such a long delay to get any of those types of projects done. A lot of these are really simple, they're not complex projects. It's just the volume of work. So we're pretty confident that a consultant, would be good at it, would get it done faster than what we can right now.
Okay, thanks. Alderfield, your hand is up. Did you have something more?
Apologies, Chair. I meant to take it down.
Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't miss out on anything that you had. Other comments or questions? A lot of, quite a number of good projects. Other comments or questions? We would need a motion. Harold.
I would move approval of all the projects proposed.
Okay, there's a motion to approve all the projects proposed. Chris.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Harold, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Just very briefly, because we ended talking about the speed hump and whether that's the right tool for the job. And in the past, I have maybe asked hard questions about speed humps and whether they are the right tool for the job. In other scenarios, I think it is a kind of exceptional case that we're dealing with. The reason why I think, let's try this. I mean, it's relatively low cost. I think there is a link sometimes between gun violence and traffic violence. I've seen some interesting projects being done in Portland where they also deal with an epidemic of gun and traffic violence, and where they have tried innovative approaches such as placemaking, like creating plazas by shutting down slip lanes. And so I think this is worth exploring, and also just something that we can implement. And as Tom said, maybe, we don't know, maybe it will be the most impactful thing in the whole list. Maybe not, but it's worth a try. And all the other projects are great. I already said that, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Other comments or questions? And just a note for the attendee who has their hand up, this isn't an interactive meeting where we go back and forth with the attendees. So thanks for understanding. We're past that phase. Any other comments or questions from commission members or alders? Okay, I am going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Okay, all the projects are approved. Thanks very much, Renee and Tom.
Thank you.
And we will look forward to, we've talked a lot about when is the right time to look at reviewing the prioritization scoring system. And Renee, there's a lot going on there. And Tom, you talked about the maintenance and potentially figuring that into the score. So it seems to me that the timing is going to be pretty right once you have some of the additional information from the studies. And as we look to try and address the issue with regard to maintenance and maybe more fairly score them when we take into account the shorter life of some of these versus the longer life of the more expensive projects, and look to make that a more equivalent method of evaluating the projects. So I think we're learning a lot as we look at the projects, and perhaps we'll be in a better position to reevaluate the scoring system. So just my thoughts on that. Other comments or questions? Great work. Really, really, really great work, everybody.
Yeah, definitely appreciate the feedback. I think we're at the point in the program where we've learned a lot and we can, improve. So thanks everyone.
Yeah. Oh, it's really been great. It's really been great to see the program come together from the beginning. So really appreciate staff's work. I know it's been a ton of work, but everybody in the community likes it so much. There's, how many did you say? 500 more on the wait list. So more to come. So thanks so much, everybody.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Thanks. Jerry and Dave, is it? We have the traffic signal priority list final approval.
Do you want me to start then, Jerry?
Yeah, why don't you start?
Okay.
Oh, and Yang too. Don't want to forget Yang.
Right.
Oh no, I don't have anything to say. Just want to see Jerry get started. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Or Dave. Yeah, go ahead.
No, right. I don't really have much to add. I know last time, just recap that I went over all the various warrants that we evaluate as part of the studies. We did take 10 of the recommended locations and did further analysis on each of them. As you'll see in the packet, there were 2 of them that had met warrants and the remainder of them did not. And I guess I really don't have much else to add, and we might as well just delve right into the details. So I actually just pass it right on over to Jerry.
All right. If you don't mind me, I think I might share my screen this time around and we'll kind of go from location to location.
Okay.
On Google Maps. All right. So I'm going to cut right to the chase and get to the locations, and we'll go through our recommendation and some of the reasoning. So we always start these with the highest ranking or any that do meet signal warrant. And in this case, we do have 2 that meet the minimum numerical signal warrants. The first being on the north side, County Highway CV and Wheeler Road. That meant on just measured volumes. We took a look at the delay out here due to that. And we did see some backup, but we also didn't see that measured vehicle delay met the delay warrant fully. We took a look at the crashes out here, and we actually found no reported crashes that were correctable. So kind of we have a situation where while it meets minimum numerical values, we don't have a safety issue. We're actually recommending maintaining it as a side street stop control intersection. Part of the reason for that is we're also a little bit worried about a signal on a corner like this, especially in the northbound direction. Some of those signal heads might be pretty well hidden. And again, going back to no crashes out here is kind of that last item showed, even at signals, we're kind of going around slapping these high vis signal heads and kind of doing all these other little things to reduce crashes. We don't want to create a crash problem that isn't there at the moment. So kind of due to those reasons, we're recommending maintaining stop control. The next location, again, this is one that just barely meets the minimum numerical value for signal, and that is Milwaukee Street and Sprecher Road. This has been one that's been on the list before. As you can tell by this aerial, we've got a new development on this corner. I believe there's one coming in on the southwest side. But again, kind of this very similar situation. We actually look at the measured delay and we kind of look at the peak hour situation, and there's a steady flow of traffic, but there's not, like a pile up of traffic where, we're seeing really long delays. Crash history out here is overall crashes have gone down since the last time we studied this. Correctable crashes did go up by 1. So we went from 5 correctable crashes in a 5-year period the last time we studied it to 6. However, that's not it's not a lot, and going from an always stop to a signal also kind of raises some concern about speeds through intersections, just because drivers approaching on a green are going to go a lot faster than drivers that know they have to stop. But kind of the big elephant in the room with this one is, as Tom had kind of shown earlier, that there might be an interchange with the interstate, and that's going to completely change. It's probably going to send us into meeting a warrant most likely, and at that point, we wouldn't have any, we would recommend that, but we are maybe hoping we can incorporate that into an interchange project, or find some assistance for funding that. But also there might be lane changes that, we don't want to install a signal now, then have to kind of rip it out and redo it in a few years. So kind of for all those reasons, we are recommending maintaining it as an always stop now, because there's not a safety issue that is kind of rising it to a point where we feel we need to do something right away. But we are definitely watching this one very closely, and it does kind of feel like we're very close to meeting signal warrant and recommending that. So those are the only two that meet warrant. All the rest don't meet the minimum numerical warrant. So we go over to the west side at High Point and Midtown Road. So this is a T intersection. Right now it's an always stop. It does not have enough volume to meet the minimum numerical traffic signal warrants. No correctable or no crashes that are considered correctable. There is a future plan to connect Raymond Road and Midtown and extend High Point South, which would create a four-way intersection. And again, we feel like waiting for that to happen is actually going to make it a lot stronger of a case for either a signal or a roundabout or some other kind of higher level intersection control. And so we are recommending maintaining an always stop, but that will most likely push us into a signal once that gets kind of realigned. Next location is Cross Country in Maple Grove. So that's kind of very close to the border with Verona, and just down the road from where Tom was showing the RFB for the Ice Age Trail. We again took some turning movement counts and ran some models and looked at the existing conditions, looked at the crashes, and it doesn't quite meet any of those on any of those warrants. A lot of the complaints out here is just kind of, it feels like a busy intersection. There should be a signal. But again, an always stop when everyone has to come to an intersection and stop. It may seem a little bit busier, but it's most likely going to be a little safer. And that's kind of evident by the lack of crashes. So I think there is kind of an effort to get some land out here. I know Sean Malloy from our office has been kind of looking at a potential roundabout here. So we don't want to rule that out. This would also be a location where we would not be able to bring this onto our fiber network and have communications like we like to have with our signals. So it's kind of an isolated area. So kind of based on all that, we are recommending currently maintaining this as an always stop. Then the next location is Schrader and Struck. Yeah, find out where I'm at here. So this request came in after the fatality out here. We took a look at the volumes and we ran the analysis, and it still showed that it was below warrant. But kind of addressing that specific complaint about the fatality, this was a case where somebody was driving at a high speed, and I believe they were intoxicated. We also have on video, or we had at the time, I don't know if they still have the video, but I remember seeing the video, and that person also ran a red light at this intersection, which is a signalized intersection, while there were, I believe, 4 people in the crosswalk. So that just kind of shows that, you know, not every type of crash is correctable by a signal, because in some cases we have situations like this where it's somebody that is just completely disregarding you know, signs and traffic laws. But aside from that crash, just looking at the intersection like we normally would, it also just does not meet any traffic signal warrants. We currently have an RFB here for that trail crossing. So we're not recommending any additional devices or change to the control configuration. The next site is, let's see, Val Phillips and Temvo Lane. So this is a little bit north of Mineral Point Road in Gammon, and a little bit south of the signalized intersection at Tree. This is very busy after school. So school lets out, and there are quite a few students that are just crossing Gammon at Tree or at the RFB at this intersection, and just kind of anywhere as they find a gap into the median, then across the street. And when I was out there watching this during the school release time, you saw a lot of parents parking in these parking stalls, and then students walking across the street to get into their car and then leave. Even with that, it's a shy of meeting signal warrant. Now there is the school warrant, but we also have kind of I'll call it like an outstanding request for a signal at Mineral Point Road in the high school's driveway. And at that time, when we got that request, due to the nature of crashes at that intersection, they were all left turning drivers and westbound drivers in the bus bike right turn lane. And they were actually going through to make a right turn at Gammon. We felt the BRT lane reconfiguration might address that crash issue. However, now that we've received this request, we're recommending doing nothing at the immediate future, but we want to talk with the school and kind of get a better idea of how traffic is being handled at the school, and see if we can find a way to lay that out a little bit better with them. And that may involve some geometric changes. It may involve a signal. I think we're just a little worried about putting 2 signals on Gammon, and then, you know, the signal maybe is better suited at the driveway with Mineral Point Road, and maybe something else at Gammon. So I think this is a case where we want to take a little bit broader of a scope and look at this whole site and work with them. So that's our recommendation, is no signal, but we are going to start talking with the school and kind of laying out a more of a site plan. And we've already been in discussion with Renee and Allie, because they've got some regular meetings with the different schools in the area. Next on the list is Elderberry and Junction. So this is just west of the Beltline. Elderberry Road heads out west. There's some more development, then it tees into Junction Road. This is another one. We collected turning movement counts and volumes, and it did not meet any signal warrants. It was pretty well below meeting the warrant, so we're recommending maintaining the current configuration. Now to the east side, Cottage Grove Road and Meadowlark. And as I'm going through these just get further and further down the list. So this is in between Stoughton Road and the interstate, almost smack dab in the middle. To the south is Stacy Lane, and that's for vehicles. As far as vehicles go, it's a dead end. There's a pathway that kind of connects further to the south. And then to the north, Meadowlark kind of zigzags through the neighborhood, and there's an elementary school, which will be important here in a second. Volume wise, there's not much going on here. However, the AM peak was the highest peak. And again, when sitting out there doing a delay study and kind of making observations, nothing really looked too bad until all of a sudden I saw some yellow school buses trying to make a southbound left turn. And that's a very difficult movement for them, and that would kind of pile up, or drivers would kind of pile up, and then you'd create a bit of a queue. But nothing, even with that said, nothing that would rise to meeting any signal warrants. Crash wise, looks like we have 3 total crashes, only 1 considered correctable. Speaking with a coworker who lives out here too, one thing to note was when Metro handled the busing, they would actually take access at the signalized intersection of Acewood. However, both at this intersection and at Tree Lane and Mineral Point Road, we've noticed whoever the yellow school bus operator is, they're kind of just taking the most direct route, regardless of what kind of traffic control devices are along the way. So that might be something worth bringing up to them and saying that you might be better just to kind of use the signal that's 2 blocks away. So again, we're recommending maintaining the current configuration and stop control. Next on the list is Gorham and Livingston. So this, we got a request for a signal here, and there's kind of all sorts of different reasons to request a signal. One of them being for the bus stop, crossing Gorham to get to the bus stop. The others actually ended up not being really correctable by a traffic signal at all, like lane merge crashes and risky left turns from the right lane, things that aren't really signal related. However, looking at this intersection as well, this intersection gets enough gaps because all the signals on Gorham and Johnson are fixed time. So every cycle, the side street ped phase comes up, and they've all got leading ped intervals. Then the vehicle green goes, but you get a little bit more steady gaps on a fairly regular basis. But we did pass this along to Renee and Tom in the Safe Streets team for a potential RFB. So we are recommending considering an RFB, but maintaining the current stop control situation. The final intersection on the list is Cedar and Park Street. So Cedar and Park Street, there's a lot going on here. We have an RFB, it's a 2-way stop, and we have an RFB on the south crosswalk. We have bus stops in the area. There's the new Park Cedar Apartments on the southwest side. Planned future north-south BRT route. And we had a couple requests. One request for updating the RFB to an accessible, an RFB with accessible features. So if you go to Willie and I think it's Blount. No, it's the next one. I can't think of the name. In front of the Wisconsin Council for the Blind, there's an accessible RFB, and it just tells you push the button and it says the warning lights are flashing. So we had that request in, and then soon after we got a request for a signal. And at the time we thought, well, let's not rush into one when we might actually recommend a signal. We ran the analysis. We didn't get a full 24-hour counts, but we did get a peak hour and off peak hour turning movement counts. And so that's why it's kind of low on the list, because the full data set isn't there. But based on those hours, those current volumes would not meet warrant. Having said that, the grocery store is not open, which I think it was about a year ago when we got this. We kind of thought it would be at this time. It's not open. That's a pretty big driver of traffic when that does open, or if it does open. When BRT comes through here, they are most likely going to be looking at probably a median bus stop, which is going to increase, could potentially increase pedestrian crossings. So we are currently recommending keeping the intersection a 2-way stop. updating the RFB and kind of handing it over to the BRT planning team to run the analysis with the changes that transit would bring to this area, just because we feel like they would know a little, they would be better at making that case than we would. So, and at that, you know, similar to the East-West BRT, I don't think we'd have any objections to a signal here. But this is also on a state route, and we whenever we talk about signals on a state route, we really have to make sure that we are showing that it meets warrant and it's justified. You know, if we just kind of go at it and say, hey, we think this is a good spot, it's probably going to get rejected. So we'd like to go to the state once with a good, strong case to make here. So those are the locations. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Dave and Jerry. Comments or questions? Bill, go ahead.
Thanks. Jerry, I wanted to talk about the Gammon at the high school. And I drove through there today. And I don't think adding another signal or something in there is going to do the job. I think the students coming out at lunchtime just jaywalked all over the place. And so I don't think they're going to walk to the only thing to stop that from happening is I think there's got to be some sort of fencing or something like that to direct them to where the traffic signals are. So that's my thought on that. I would not be in favor of another signal in there. I just don't think you're not going to get the benefits because I don't think it's going to get used. I think there's got to be something else to prevent the kids from crossing all over the place. Thanks. I think something like along what you did, what the city did on East Washington by East High School, I think is something like that is a better solution. Oh, and I do think I completely agree with you of not adding any signals to this go around. I think you've made a strong case not to do anything different than you're currently doing. So I think that's commendable. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Harold, go ahead.
Thanks. Quick question about Schroeder Road. I have some recollection. Did we approve a Safe Streets project there, or are there any other improvements coming to that road? Safety improvements.
I don't know if Tom is still on or Renee. I don't see them.
Oh, okay. Well.
Yeah, they both left already. Sorry, Harold.
All right. Yeah, I guess it doesn't really impact whether we should put a signal there or not. All right. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Bill, did you have anything else? Okay. Well, they're looking for us to approve the final traffic signal priority list. So do we have a motion? Bill?
I'll make a motion of approval of the recommendations submitted by Jerry and his staff.
Okay. Motion to approve the recommendations from staff. Harold?
Second.
Okay. Did you wish to speak any further, Bill?
Yeah, I think it's good that not adding just because you meet warrants does not necessarily mean you have to put in a traffic signal. I think I think you well made the case that's certainly the case for these projects for this year. So continually in a monitor, and that's the way to go. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the recommendations from staff for the traffic signal priority list. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Very good. Thanks, thanks so much, Dave and Jerry. Lots of good information and lots of good discussion, and sounds like you're staying on top of them all, and we'll hear back from you if there are changes in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks. So next we go to, am I saying it correctly, Bartolon Path?
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
Okay. Emma,
If
is
I-
that you? Or Chris, you want to go first?
Yeah, let me just kind of introduce it real quick and then Emma can go through the plans. So this is a sidewalk / path that we are looking to incorporate in conjunction with the men's shelter that's being built on Bartolon Drive. I'm going to share my screen real quick. So, folks are seeing that?
Yes.
Okay. So this site right here, is a new men's shelter that's getting built. We're up on the far east side. Here's Kinsman, Stoughton Road, Bartolon Drive, and then Anderson. So the men's shelter is going in right here. We anticipate when that opens, there'll be a strong desire path to connect to the BRT station, either on Anderson Street or down on Mendota Street. So what we're looking to do is try to connect a sidewalk path connection from the men's shelter down to Anderson Street. And one thing I want would be interested to hear from the commissioners are, so this is, our men's shelter is going to open next year, and we anticipate the need for this path right away. And the BRT will be running, path will be, the shelter will be open. However, we do have the 51 project that's proposed by WSDOT coming up in the future. So it's a good chance this path might be sacrificial. So I just want folks to understand that, because they are showing a 10-foot path along this stretch as well. But the way the street's configured now, we can't fit that 10-foot path in right now. So that's one thing too. I think given that information, we still think it's important to try to put this path in. One potential option is that, we could stop it at Oren and have people cross the street and use the sidewalk on the other side until the full WSDOT project is complete. But our concern was that people weren't going to do that and continue to walk on the west side of this service road. So I'll let Emma talk about our kind of temporary design that we think we can fit in there now, and be interested to hear your thoughts on that issue.
Thanks, Chris. Go ahead, Emma.
So yeah, just like Chris says, essentially the goal is to connect the 6-foot. You guys see my screen?
Not yet. No.
Not yet. Oh,
nope.
There we go. Okay. How about now?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So just like Chris said, the goal of the project is to connect from the new sidewalk and curb ramp down at Stoughton and Anderson up to the homeless shelter up here. And so we weren't able to fit in 6 foot. It was as wide as we got just because of the width. I'll call it a median because it kind of is, but it gets tight through here. And so we're doing like a 6 foot concrete sidewalk path kind of a idea. And so, really just the goal is so that you don't have any crossings. You can just, if you come out of the shelter, you just go all the way down, come down to Anderson Street, and you don't have to go over any driveways or any like Oren Road or anything like that. So that's really the gist of it all.
Okay, comments or questions for Emma and Chris? Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So just to make sure I understand this, so we have the 10-foot path, and that piece we think will be compatible with the Stoughton Road? Or
Yes,
that also
they plan to tie into the path that we're building along the men's shelter, so that part can stay. It's the part to the south of the men's shelter that might become sacrificial.
and would be possibly replaced by nothing.
No, it will be replaced by a 10-foot path. So,
which we get by removing the service road?
Nope, they will realign Stoughton Road when they reconstruct it to give us the space that we need for the 10-foot path.
Okay, good. No, yeah, okay. So I guess it's really a matter of, do you have a sense of the cost?
Yeah, I think Emma did do an
I
estimate.
think it was like 100,000.
Yeah, 150, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
For the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think in that case, let's do it.
Yeah, the one thing is we don't know when Stoughton Road will be reconstructed. I mean, they are studying it right now. They're doing a environmental impact statement. They seem to be on the fast track, but it's still at least probably 4 years or more.
Right.
And the men's shelter is going to open next year.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we need to do something. Maybe think about, and this is maybe a BPW question, more like, does it make sense to have concrete versus asphalt? Is one cheaper if we don't anticipate this staying in for a really long time? Stuff like that. But
sure,
yeah, it's a gap that needs to be closed.
Okay. Is that all you had then, Harold? Okay. Chris, go ahead.
Thanks. I think I'm generally in favor. I just don't think I'm fully understanding why, given that it's a temporary solution, most likely we wouldn't just add crossings to the existing sidewalks there.
Yeah, we could do crosswalks to Orin. I was noticing that myself.
Just do something like this, cross right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that what you were getting at, Chris?
Yeah. Just trying to explore the area there, and it seems like there is an existing network, maybe that isn't ideal, but that just needs a few connections. But if that doesn't work, I would definitely be in favor of doing this. I think it's a good investment. But yeah, I'm wondering if there's other options, I guess.
Can I just ask you, Kristen, didn't you say earlier you didn't think that people would cross?
We were worried that if we stopped it at Orin Road, that people would just continue to walk in the grass in that, where Emma's drawn it anyways. They wouldn't cross the road and use the sidewalk. Some people certainly would, but I think a lot of people might not.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Chris. Bill, go ahead.
Thanks. I think it is worth continuing some sort of path down to Anderson. But I guess I was thinking the same way with Harold. I would think making it out of concrete on the part that's going to definitely stay after WSDOT does their project. But I think it would be cheaper to just, that asphalt would be sufficient for the 4, 5, 6 years that it before the Stoughton Road gets built. So, yeah, I think you can make a crossing at Orin, but I think the path is worth the expense down to Anderson. Thanks.
Okay. Sure. Thanks, Bill. It sounds like the majority of folks are saying that it sounds like we need the path even though a portion of it might be temporary, but that perhaps you can do some cost saving measures on the temporary portion, and maybe that will help. Bill, did you have something else or no? Okay, just checking. Anybody have any further comments? Chris, Emma, is that what you needed then?
That sounds good. Yeah.
Yep,
Very
that's all
helpful.
for me.
Okay, great. No other comments before we move on to the next? Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we move on to item 8, which is updates from members of other boards, committees, and commissions. Do we have any reports? Robbie?
Yes, this meeting has not happened yet. It's happening tomorrow, but on the agenda for the Joint Campus Area Committee is a relatively significant transportation item, which is improving the Lakeshore Path at the UW past Limnology. There's, according to the UW, 15,000 people a day use that path. That's pedestrians and bicyclists. And right now, pedestrians and bicyclists are separated. Pedestrians to the north on the lakeside, bicyclists between the Limnology building and Bascom Hill on the south side. It's a pretty tight squeeze. There's parking there. There's a blind curve. You have to go through a parking lot when you are headed east. And they have a proposal to improve all of that on the agenda. So we will get a presentation on that. And I think that even though it's on the UW campus, it's a pretty significant connection for a lot of people. So I thought people might be interested to know about that.
Okay, maybe people can watch. Thank you very much for letting us know.
FYI, the meeting is in person.
Oh, okay.
At the Wharf building. If you show up at 4:45 at the Wharf building. I can't remember the room number, but it's the first floor.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, brief update from BPW. We may have had 2 meetings, but I'll only cover since the last TC meeting, but I'll cover the last one. We approved plans and specs for the citywide rollout of 20 is Plenty, which involves apparently buying 1,920 mile-an-hour signs. So that's very exciting, and I feel relevant for what we have been involved with. We awarded a contract for Safe Streets Madison, like some of these projects that were approved a long time ago, but now actually the concrete is going to be poured. And then I think at pretty much every BPW meeting, we have some change orders related to BRT, things popping up, things being resolved. I think my overall takeaway from that is that the project is still on track. It is still within anticipated cost. And so hopefully this is going to continue and we will have BRT in the fall. That's all I had.
Okay, thanks, Harold. We keep losing people, so good thing we're going to be done here soon. Okay. Anybody have any other updates? Okay. Looking ahead at our meeting calendar, I noticed that we have a meeting scheduled for the Wednesday of Memorial Day week, so the Wednesday following Memorial Day. So in anticipation, since we had a bit of an attendance concern during spring break, I asked Aiden to send out an email regarding that 529 TC meeting, just to find out if pretty far ahead of time if people have any plans to be gone, so we can work around that if people do. So expect to see that from Aiden, and we do appreciate people letting us know certainly when they're going to be unavailable, understanding that sometimes things come up at the last minute and that's not always possible. So that was all I had for announcements. Unless staff had any other announcements. No. Okay, looking forward to our May 15th meeting, the adopting the recommended for the North-South BRT locally preferred alternative was referred from the council to us for the 5:15 meeting. And we're also looking at potentially talking about crossing guard policy, approval of some more Metro Transit August service and bus stop changes that Mick talked about earlier, a position letter on Stoughton Road, and possibly our TC annual work plan. That'll come either this next time or our meeting soon after. So, and the future agenda items that have been suggested from the Transportation Commission members, I wrote those up and they're included in this item in Legistar so that you can see them whenever you'd like. Just want to know if anybody has any other future agenda items we should add to the list. No? Okay, then I need a motion to adjourn. And thanks very much for another excellent meeting, Harold.
Move adjournment.
Okay, and Robbie, a second? All right. I'm assuming unanimous consent vote, and thanks everybody. Have a great evening.